Chapter 33:20. Absolute Beginning chuckled as he glanced at Lin Sun and said, "Please enlighten me." Lin Sun pointed towards the distance and said, "Just as fellow Taoist comprehended earlier, the forbidden area of profundity is the quintessence of the ruins of profundity of Tao, and a complete Tao of life once existed within it." It once existed? Absolute Beginning frowned. Could it be that it doesn't exist now? These words attracted the attention of everyone present here. Lin Sun said, "It did exist, but it was a shattered Tao of life." Subsequently, he spoke frankly about how he'd seen the tree of life in the ruins of profundity of Tao, and he didn't conceal it at all. The hearts of everyone present here rose and fell like waves when they heard this. A calamity actually destroyed the Tao of life. Looks like this calamity doesn't belong to this chaotic era. Chen Shi sighed lightly. Only now did he understand that the energy of samsara he possessed was merely a portion of the grand Tao of life, whereas the river diagram was born from the profound tree of life. Since fellow Taoist possesses the energy of rebirth, doesn't it mean that you can repair the tree of life? In this way, the damaged Tao of life can be rebuilt? At this moment, Absolute Beginning realized something, and he looked at Lin Sun. Yes. Lin Sun didn't conceal it, and he seemed to be very frank. So that's how it is, Absolute Beginning sighed with emotion. The profundity of rebirth really is an unprecedented variable. But I never imagined that its effects would be so unbelievable. He fell into deep thought and seemed to be pondering and deducing something. Grandfather, why did Lin Sun tell you such a secret? Chen Linkong couldn't help but ask via voice transmission. He really didn't understand why Lin Sun would be so frank and not conceal it at all. When you try to conceal and hold back from an enemy during a life and death battle, it usually means that you have misgivings in your heart. Just like Absolute Beginning said before, he would definitely not leave a path of survival for himself at such a time, and only because of this would he be determined to win. It's just a competition of mental state, Chen Shi explained patiently via voice transmission. Chen Shi explained patiently via voice transmission. Lin Sun didn't conceal it. Firstly, it's because Absolute Beginning once gave me a jade slip. Even though I put away the jade slip in the end, Lin Sun obtained Absolute Beginning's comprehensions from it, and this was equivalent to imperceptibly obtaining a trace of friendship. In a life and death battle, if Lin Sun is sure to kill his opponent, he will be affected by the friendship. He will consider giving his opponent a dignified death and consider more things. Then, his idea of killing his opponent will no longer be purely focused. Rather than that, I should sever this thread of influence. Only then will I be able to kill him without any distractions. The second reason is that Lin Sun has no worries. Under such circumstances, even if he were to attack, there wouldn't be a single flaw. When he spoke up to hear, Chen Shi said, "Not to mention that even if I, Absolute Beginning, found out about these secrets, so what? After all, the outcome of this battle has to be decided." He painstakingly described the subtleties within it, and only then did Chen Linkong come to an understanding. Only now did he realize that his mental state was slightly inferior. Perhaps it was precisely because of this slight difference that he was unable to step out from the perfection stage of the boundless realm until now. Of course, this is only a competition of mental states. It's precisely because Absolute Beginning and Lin Sun have no worries and nothing to fear that they're able to talk like this. They seem to be discussing the Tao like old friends, yet once they really fight, they'll each be more resolute and merciless than the other. As soon as Chen Shi said this, Chen Linkong couldn't help but ask, "Grandfather, what about you? What do you think?" Chen Shi replied with a question. Chen Linkong nodded and didn't speak any further. He faintly understood that it was already the time to decide the outcome of the battle, yet his grandfather was still able to chat patiently with him. How could such a mental state be ordinary? "I can't figure it out, I'm truly unable to figure it out." Absolute Beginning, who'd always been pondering, suddenly sighed lightly. In the end, I still have to personally make a trip to the forbidden area of profundity. Only in this way would I be able to comprehend the profundities within it. As he spoke, he looked at Lin Sun once more. Moreover, if I want to find a safe path to the forbidden area of profundity, then I'm afraid only the energy of rebirth can accomplish it. Exactly. When he spoke up to here, Lin Sun looked towards the distance and said, Xia Ji will return from the forbidden area of profundity in a while. At that time, it'll be the best opportunity for all of you to make a move. Why don't we decide the outcome of the battle at that time? Absolute Beginning was stunned, and then he seemed to have come to an understanding and said, She utilized the eternal arc to enter the forbidden area of profundity? Lin Sun nodded. The eternal arc was formed from a leaf condensed from the tree of life. As the saying goes, fallen leaves return to their roots. When this treasure carried Xia Ji to arrive before the tree of life, it vanished. Now, she's utilizing the energy of the tree of life to walk on the path back to the profound God domain. Absolute Beginning said with a smile, So that's how it is. If it's like this, then wouldn't I be able to coerce you if I capture this Miss Xia Ji? Lin Sun smiled as well and said, That depends on if you have the ability to do so. When they spoke up to here, Absolute Beginning couldn't help but roar with laughter. Excellent. Fellow Taoist Chen Shi, another little friend Lin, has appeared on our path towards the Tao. How fortunate! His voice contained indescribable pleasure. From the moment he appeared to the moment he talked with Lin Sun, he had actually been sensing Lin Sun's state of mind and observing Lin Sun's reaction. When Lin Sun told him about Xia Ji, Absolute Beginning finally knew that Lin Sun's state of mind wasn't inferior to his own. Possessing such a state of mind had already proved that even if Lin Sun was facing him, Lin Sun still had a resolute and unchangeable mentality to win. Revealing a natural charm amidst his casualness and calmness was the true state of being free from worries. Chun, she said indifferently, isn't such a battle exactly what you want to see? Besides, don't you feel that the sword lock on your body is an eyesore? Absolute Beginning pointed at the sword lock on his body and said, Fellow Taoist, you're too focused. This sword lock has long since ceased to exist in my heart. Chun Shi's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course, you're right. It's indeed an eyesore to wrap around my body like this. On the contrary, it will be regarded as me, Absolute Beginning, deliberately concealing my cultivation. As he spoke, Absolute Beginning casually pulled it. The sword lock instantly broke apart inch by inch and dissipated into nothingness. Many people were shocked and the look in their eyes changed. This sword lock was formed by the swordsman's lifelong cultivation. When he reincarnated, he suppressed Absolute Beginning in the Taihun realm with this sword lock. But who could have thought that Absolute Beginning could break this sword lock so easily now? Undoubtedly, this meant that Absolute Beginning's cultivation was obviously stronger than that of the swordsman at that time. Everyone could see this. However, both Chen Shi and Lin Sun were not surprised. If the Beginning was still being bound by the sword lock, how could he dare to fight at this moment? Tai Chu stretched his body and muttered to himself, You don't say, it's much easier this way. It's a pity that if I want to talk to the swordsman in the future, I won't have anything to rely on. If he were here, he would only cut you mercilessly with a sword like he did in those days. Chen Shi couldn't help laughing. Absolute Beginning also laughed and said, That's true. Then, he looked at Lin Sun and said, My young friend, how long do we have to wait? Now. Lin Sun looked into the distance. His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when a wave of fine and light spatial ripples arose in the depths of the chaotic mist in the extreme distance, and then a graceful and slender figure walked out from the forbidden area of profundity and was about to arrive at the profound God domain. This scene was noticed by everyone present at the first time, and the atmosphere in the field also changed subtly at this moment. There seemed to be endless killing intent surging in the silence. Heaven and earth, mountains and rivers, all phenomena, all returned to a kind of extremely oppressive silence. Absolute Beginning didn't look back. He kept staring at Lin Sun and said with a slight smile, "I'm here to fight with you." Lin Sun said without hesitation, "As you wish." Chun Shi pointed at Heya in the distance and said to Chun Linkong, "Go play with her later." Chun Linkong nodded. A trace of coldness appeared on Heya's exquisite and beautiful face. Her black robe fluttered without wind, revealing her snow-white and translucent legs. Ape Ancestor turned around with his sword in his arms and looked at Chun Shi from afar. There was killing intent surging in his indifferent and emotionless eyes. "Taoist brother, let's wait and see. Don't distract Lin Sun." Golden Cicada spoke in a warm voice. Subhuti glanced at the situation and said, "All right." Clang! A sword howl resounded. Ape Ancestor was the first to move. He held his sword in hand as he strode forward, and his figure seemed to have transformed into an expanse of boundless dark space. Chaotic Qi transformed into the shape of Tai Chi, and it drew along a strand of profound sword insight. He was like an epoch of the Grand Tao. Chaos developed into Tai Chi, and he drew the energy of dark space into his sword insight. He was like a supreme overlord that stood above eternity. Chun Shi couldn't help but shake his head when he saw this. "There's no need to be in such a hurry to give your life away." Ape Ancestor remained silent and stabbed with his sword. Bang! At that instant, the energy of chaos, epochs, darkness, and various other energies seemed to have been condensed into this sword strike. It had long since exceeded the Tao and arts of the mortal world, and it was far from something the energy of the eternal path towards the Tao could compare to. Undoubtedly, this sword strike had struggled free from the eternal path towards the Tao and arrived at a higher path towards the Tao. It was the energy of the life Tao, and it was extremely profound. Chun Shi's handsome figure flashed, and then a profound and unfathomable river of talisman markings surged into appearance. It formed the myriad of Taos in the world, the phenomena of the world, and the epoch. Samsara even floated within the river of talisman markings. Bang! As soon as Chun Shi smashed his fist forward, that expanse of the heavens and the earth suddenly dimmed down. It was like the end of the world had arrived, and the 6 paths of reincarnation seemed to reflect itself into the world with the intention of annihilating all the gods in the world. When the sword and fist collided, it just happened to be like 2 supreme grand Taos were colliding, and terrifying phenomena arose. The heavens and the earth collapsed, an epoch fell, and a myriad of worlds became nothing. The entire profound God domain trembled violently. On the other hand, Chun Shi and Ape Ancestor were like 2 supreme overlords that had stepped foot into eternity, and they'd launched an intense and unparalleled battle of the Tao. It was just like how it was when Chun Shi fought the sovereign sex master all those years ago. However, both of them couldn't be compared to all those years ago. Chapter 33:21. When the Grand Tao had already transcended eternity, then the ability and might utilized in battle weren't ordinary Tao arts since a long time ago. Such a battle was a competition of the height of one's Tao. What was shown in the battle was their control of the great Tao. State of mind, will, and wisdom had long been integrated into every subtle detail of the battle. In the eyes of others, it was another scene. It was as if 2 supreme great Tao were fighting and colliding fiercely in the chaos. The violent flow of great Tao was full of destructive aura that was enough to make the cultivators in the world despair. Even in the eyes of Chun Linkong, Heya, and other boundless realm figures, such a Tao battle could be called the most terrifying in the world, and there was a great horror hidden in it. When their minds were connected, they would inevitably be impacted and affected. Of course, they would not be stupid enough to observe and verify. That would only cause a serious blow to their own Tao path. Boom, the battle between Chun Shi and Ape Ancestor became more and more terrifying. Their figures went straight to the depths of the sky filled with chaos, causing lightning and thunder to appear everywhere, calamities to appear, and the collapse of thousands of Tao. I'm afraid the outcome of this battle will not be determined in a short time. Taichu narrowed his eyes slightly and said softly, Ape ancestor will die. Lin Sun said casually. Between the two judgments, Taichu judged that it would be difficult to determine the outcome in a short time, while Lin Sun judged that Ape ancestor would die, which also reflected the difference in their state of mind. Taichu couldn't help but laugh. There is nothing absolute in the world. Why do you make such a judgment? Even though Ape Ancestor's Tao path is different from before, there is only victory and death in his heart. Lin Sun said casually, after all, he was defeated by Senior Chen Shi and suppressed in samsara. What he longs for is to defeat Senior Chen Shi and wash away the hatred of the past. In Senior Chen Shi's heart, this battle is a Tao battle. It's a competition of who is superior and who can go further. After a pause, he continued, Ape Ancestor is obsessed with victory and is limited by life and death. Senior Chen Shi is obsessed with the Tao path and looks at the high and the long term. Comparing the two, Ape Ancestor still lacks some foundation. Perhaps it is the suffering of eternal samsara that has become a fetter in his heart. Taichu's eyes flickered and he shook his head. Only those who are determined can succeed. I have a different opinion from you. Lin Sun said casually, It's normal. Everyone has his own way and his own strength. This is the reason for the struggle of the Great Tao. The only way to determine the winner is to fight with your own hand. That's right. Any dispute will always be decided by fists. The most common truth in the world was the greatest truth. Not convinced? Then I'll beat you until you're convinced, haha. The absolute beginning laughed. Black Crow, come and fight. Suddenly, the distant Chun Linkong's gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he looked at Heya from afar. His vital energy just happened to be like a great river that revolved and rose layer by layer, and it surged like the tide and intended to drown the world. Seeing this, the beginning smiled and said, Little Crow, go and fight. If possible, help me teach this little bastard a lesson. He is much more arrogant than his grandfather. Teaching him a lesson is boring. I'll kill him. A hint of killing intent surfaced between Black Crow's clean brows. She leaped into the air, her black robes fluttering in the wind. Her graceful figure was already surging with the power of the laws of chaos that resembled flames. Boom! Her palm and fingers clasped together, and a black eternal sun soared through the sky. Chen Linkong stretched out his right hand, clenched his palm and fingers, and pulled out a Taoist sword condensed from his own great Tao. Amidst the clanging sound of the sword stabbed out. When the black sun pressed down, it just happened to be stabbed by the Taoist sword, and it exploded with a loud bang. But Black Crow's white hands were flying, and she had already soared into the sky to fight fiercely with Chen Linkong. Two existences in the great perfection of the boundless realm, their cultivation was already equivalent to standing at the peak of the boundless realm in the world. At this moment they were fighting, and this battle that was staged could also be called the peak battle on the eternal path. What do you think of their attainments? The beginning only glanced at this battle, and his gaze turned back to Lin Sun. The victory or defeat between them is already not under their control. In the end, it depends on the battle between Senior Chen Shi and Ancestor Ape, and also the battle between you and me. Lin Sun said casually. The beginning thought deeply and said, Yes, I won't allow anything to happen to Black Crow, and Chen Shi and you naturally won't allow anything to happen to Chen Linkong. He glanced over Lin Sun, looked at Beauty and Golden Cicada, and said with a smile, As for them, it's good to be bystanders. Once they make a move, it will instead implicate you, and it will also give me a chance to attack you. Beauty frowned slightly, but he was silent. Golden Cicada was as gentle as before, quiet and calm. And at this moment, Lin Sun raised his eyes and looked at the depths of the chaos in the distance. Let's begin. These 3 words were as light as a feather, but they were like a clap of thunder. At this moment, all the people in the mysterious god realm trembled slightly, and on Lin Sun's body, there was an invisible aura and charm emerging. There was no fluctuation of the great Tao, no power that shook the universe, and not a trace of Taoist light leaked out. It was like the chaos, empty. Can't wait. The beginning asked with a smile. The Tao is the law of nature. When I want to hit you, I will hit you. Why wait? Lin Sun sneered. Then he stepped forward. One step. He came to the front of the beginning and raised his fist. His body was like the Tao and his fist was like the chaos, but it was simple and natural, just like the charm of the world. It was natural, without a trace of being chiseled. But the invisible charm made the beginning's pupils slightly constricted, and then suddenly lit up. With a thought, his dignified figure did not retreat, but instead, he also raised his fist and smashed. Bang! The fists collided. With the two as the center, a ripple of the great Tao suddenly spread hundreds of meters, thousands of meters, tens of thousands of meters. Even the endless void of the entire mysterious god realm shook violently, and the infinite secret realm floating in the void suddenly exploded, shaking like a tottering star. And the incredible thing was that the spreading torrent of destruction did not affect other people in this world, nor did it disturb anyone's mind. As a result, in the eyes of the people, the collision between Lin Sun and the beginning seemed to happen in another time and space. Although they could see it, they could not feel the mysterious power contained in it. This was naturally shocking. But Lin Sun and the beginning didn't seem to be surprised. After the two fists collided, they attacked again. Boom! Lin Sun punched out decisively. It was like the ruins of creation had appeared imperceptibly, and a river of eras surged into appearance. It surged mightily and displayed the profundities of the birth and destruction of eras. The beginning let out a long laugh, put his fingers together, and drew a line in the air. A calamity blade swept out, piercing the long river of epochs, and an indomitable force pierced between Lin Sun's eyebrows. But on the way, Lin Sun waved his sleeves, and the blade of disaster burst into pieces. Unexpectedly, the beginning put his hands together, and the land around him collapsed with a loud bang. He also condensed a ruins of creation, and a long river of epochs surged out. Then, as the beginning stepped forward, the Kunlun ruins were condensed, and the ruins of ultimate evolved across the sky. Together with the ruins of creation, they evolved into his supreme way of Tao, rumbling and crushing towards Lin Sun. That scene was undoubtedly too terrifying. The origin of this chaotic era was composed of the origin power of the four great ruins of Tao. In this way, four origin rules of life, fate, creation, and the five sequences of the ruins of ultimate were derived. The beginning had undoubtedly grasped the origin rules of the three great ruins of Tao a long time ago. Lin Sun wasn't surprised by this. Existences that could take that step from the ultimate realm of the eternal path of the Tao had practically grasped this origin rule a long time ago. It was just that their paths of Tao were different, causing their comprehension and control of these origin rules to be different. Boom! In the next moment, the phenomena of the Kunlun ruins, ruins of ultimate, and ruins of creation appeared on Lin Sun's body. As he slaughtered, these phenomena underwent a miraculous and unbelievable change. The two of them fought intensely, and it was as if they were fighting for control of the entire chaotic era. Although the origin rules they used were the same, their paths of Tao were completely different. When the beginning attacked, everything revealed an extremely terrifying aura of destruction. Decay, exhaustion, withering, sinking, and terminus. All of them were related to destruction and death. It was to the extent that the origin rules of the three great ruins of Tao he deduced revealed an oppressive aura of destruction. On the other hand, Lin Sun's strength possessed a Tao of transformation that was endless and endless. It deduced the profundities of destruction and rebirth, and it revolved the secrets of life amidst withering and flourishing. It was to the extent that the three great ruins of Tao he'd manifested seemed to be constantly transforming and being reborn. This was the difference in their paths of the Tao. When both of them started to touch and comprehend the essence of the Tao and seek the profundities of the Tao of life, what they comprehended actually came from the most quintessence profundities of this chaotic era. On the other hand, because their mental states and paths of the Tao were different, this completely different energy of the Grand Tao had appeared. Bang! The battle grew more and more intense. Lin Sun and the beginning's figures had practically become illusory. When looked at from afar, it was like two supreme Grand Taos were fighting with all their might. Such strength and might could easily destroy an era's civilization. Subhuti and Golden Cicada had moved far away. At this moment, Chun Shi and the Ape Ancestor were fighting in the profound God domain, Lin Sun and the Beginning were fighting, and Chun Linkong and Heya were fighting. These three battles were capable of shaking the hearts of all, and they were too intense. If it was at any other place, then it would have probably caused an immeasurable calamity since a long time ago, and it was bound to affect the entire universe and affect the fate of a myriad of living beings. Even if it was within the profound God domain, the destructive force created by such a battle was still terrifying to the point it caused one's heart to go cold. At the very least, Subhuti felt that if it was him, then perhaps he would be able to go against Heya. But if he were to go against figures like the Ape Ancestor and the Beginning, then he was bound to perish. Young brother, if we want to determine the victor between us, then we'll have to compete in our grasp of the Tao of life in the end. What do you think about this strike? Suddenly, the Beginning's voice resounded through the heavens and the earth. He grinned, and then he suddenly made a grabbing motion with his palm. Bang! The chaotic laws that covered the sky descended and transformed into an enormous hand. When it enveloped down, a strange and terrifying scene appeared. A large portion of Lin Sun's spirit, energy, and essence had actually been fiercely seized away. Chapter 33:22. All of a sudden, Lin Sun's chi was weakened. That scene was so thrilling that it was hard for people to accept it. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Tai Chu stepped forward boldly and grabbed another part of Lin Sun's essence. Qi and spirit were taken away again. The weakening of qi would affect the performance of the whole cultivation. What's more, Lin Sun was hit twice like this. Lin Sun's figure flashed, and his qi was turbulent. In the distance, Bodhi Heart was in suspense. Don't panic, Taoist brother. Lin Sun must have a way to deal with it. Golden Cicada whispered to Lin Sun. He stared at the battle in the distance without blinking, and his face was calm. On the battlefield, Tai Chu came again. Boom! A burst of obscure and magical light rain surged on Lin Sun's body, and the lost qi in his body was restored in an instant. Seeing this, Tai Chu couldn't help sighing. The power of nirvana is really amazing. Depriving the essence, qi, and spirit of living beings, is this the way of life you understand? Lin Sun asked. Yes, this way involves the origin of life. You should know that every life has its own essence, qi, and spirit. Only in this way can one refine his blood, strengthen his body, nourish his soul, and mobilize the qi inside and outside the body. Essence, qi, and spirit are the three essences of the origin of life. If you understand its mystery, you can control its power. Life and death can be controlled by my mind, Tai Chu said frankly. When talking, the two didn't slow down, and they had been fighting fiercely. However, from this moment on, the competition between the two was their own understanding and control of the way of life. For example, every time Tai Chu attacked, he easily cut off a part of Lin Sun's essence, qi, and spirit, which was extremely mysterious and terrifying. But Lin Sun's nirvana made his damaged essence, qi, and spirit constantly transformed and repaired. What was more mysterious was that as his essence, qi, and spirit were cut off again and again, The new essence, chi, and spirit after nirvana seemed to go through subtle and magical transformations and become stronger than before. Absolute Beginning sensed it as well. He beamed a wry smile. If it goes on like this, it looks like I'm helping you. The word calamity is annoying. He had a deep understanding of the calamity origin. He knew that every time he cut Lin Sun's spirit, chi, and soul, it was like a tribulation. Lin Sun had the nirvana power Upanishad, so after each tribulation, he got tempered and transformed. Of course, this was not unbreakable. As long as he could let Lin Sun die of tribulation, there would be no nirvana to talk about. But it was obvious that he couldn't kill Lin Sun with one blow. After that, the beginning started laughing. However, fighting you allowed me to comprehend some of the profundities of rebirth, so I didn't lose out. When the victor is decided, both of us will experience a great tribulation, and both of us will obtain a transformation. However, only the one that survives will be able to enjoy this transformation. Lin Sun said calmly. Then let's see who will survive. A Tai Chu laughed. Boom. The battle between them grew more and more intense. Actually, at this moment, the battle between Chen Shi and the ape ancestor had arrived at its most intense and dangerous state. Both of them were injured, but comparatively speaking, Chen Shi was undoubtedly in a slightly more composed state. However, the ape ancestor couldn't be defeated in a short period of time. Chen Shi couldn't help but sigh with emotion. After a long time, the sovereign sex master had improved greatly, and he was like a completely different person. The battle between Chen Linkong and He Ye was the same. Both of them were existences at the perfection stage of the boundless realm, and they were on the same level. Now they were competing in their control and utilization of the Grand Tao. I can't waste any more time. During the battle, Lin Sun glanced at the chaos in the distance, and then he suddenly looked at the beginning and said, Fellow Taoist, your comprehension of the Tao of life is far inferior to mine. The beginning's eyes narrowed slightly. Boom. Lin Sun's aura changed abruptly, and a completely different aura surged out from his body. It could be clearly seen that an extraordinary divine territory surged out from his body, and within it were 9 realms: mortal transformation, calamity, gloom, source, evil source, calamity, Tao determination, Tao development, and dark yellow. Every single realm surged out a mysterious and unfathomable law of the source of chaos, and they blended together and rotated slowly in the divine territory. After that, the profound God territory appeared in Lin Sun's Grand Tao, and countless secret realms were like grains of sand in the Ganges River. In the end, the source of chaos surged out like layers of light screens. It was lustrous and dazzling, and it reflected the inconceivable mysteries of spirit bestowal, samsara, and so on. In the end, a mysterious ancient tree appeared in the chaos. This was the forbidden area of profundity. At this moment, the divine territory, profound God territory, and the forbidden area of profundity had formed an almost complete ruins of profundity in Lin Sun's Grand Tao. His imposing aura changed abruptly at this moment, and it was as if he'd become the ruler of the profound God territory. Every single move he made caused the entire heavens and the earth to resonate, and it formed a rhythm with Lin Sun as the core. At this moment, the bodies of the boundless realm existences that were distributed in the 9 realms of the divine territory trembled as they sensed a supreme force of will that had appeared in the heavens and the earth, and it caused them to be unable to help but look at each other in shock while their minds suffered an extremely great impact. Or perhaps, it could be said that the quintessence aura of the entire ruins of profundity had been drawn and affected by Lin Sun's cultivation. Such a scene caused the hearts of Chen Shi and ape ancestor who were in battle to shake, and they revealed various expressions. Chen Shi laughed happily, and he seemed to understand. On the other hand, a wisp of gloominess appeared between ape ancestor's brows. As for Chen Linkong and He Ye, their minds were impacted as well, and it caused their battle to be disturbed. Fortunately, both of them were affected, and it allowed them to avoid the possibility of being heavily injured by the other party. On the other hand, Subhuti and Golden Cicada's expressions changed slightly. Subhuti was gratified and excited. Golden Cicada seemed to be lost in thought. At this moment, Absolute Beginning, who was in the battlefield, was finally moved, and he said, "This is what you've comprehended in these 10 years? Not bad." As Lin Sun spoke, he'd already punched out. It was an ordinary punch, but Absolute Beginning felt an unprecedented threat, because the power in that punch directly threatened his life. Bang! In the next moment, Absolute Beginning's figure staggered back, and he was shaken to the point even his life quintessence was shaken. The essence, energy, spirit, vital blood, and soul in his entire body suffered an impact as if they'd suffered heavenly punishment. This was a slaughter that targeted life, and it was formidable to the point ordinary methods were unable to go against it. However, Absolute Beginning roared with laughter instead. "Not bad, not bad. I didn't wait for countless years in vain. This is precisely the Tao of life that I've been waiting for." As he spoke, he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed towards the distance. The might of this palm strike seemed as if it traversed boundless space and time, and it tore through the layers of chaos that obstructed it. Right at this moment, Xia Zhi's graceful figure had just walked out of the forbidden area of profundity. But before she could stand firm, Absolute Beginning's palm strike had already come towards her. Lin Sun had been prepared for this since a long time ago, or it could be said that since the beginning of this battle, he'd already frankly said that Xia Zhi would return. He was naturally not surprised that Absolute Beginning would choose to make a move at this moment. Go! Lin Sun's mind moved, and an obscure and mysterious chaotic light screen appeared out of thin air in the void in front of Xia Zhi, and it blocked Absolute Beginning's palm strike. Bang! An earth-shattering collision resounded, and even the void there was in disorder. On the other hand, Lin Sun's figure had already flashed towards Xia Zhi. Compared to killing Absolute Beginning, he was more concerned about Xia Zhi's safety. How could Absolute Beginning allow him to do as he pleased? His figure flashed across the sky to block Xia Zhi. "You can't stop it." As Lin Sun spoke, he was about to launch an all-out attack. But right at this moment, a gentle voice resounded. "Little friend Lin, please stop. Otherwise, your master's life will be in danger." Lin Sun's heart shook, and his expression that had always been calm and indifferent had completely changed at this moment. In his divine sense, Golden Cicada, who was watching the battle from afar, had one hand on Subhuti's shoulder at this moment, and his expression was calm and peaceful. However, Subhuti's face was filled with shock and anger, and it was filled with disbelief. It was as if he hadn't expected that Golden Cicada would attack him at this moment. And this unforeseen event was also unexpected for Lin Sun, and he was instantly caught off guard. Even his state of mind was in a state of disorder for a moment. It was also at this moment that Absolute Beginning seized the opportunity and slashed down through the air with his palm. Bang! Lin Sun's essence, qi, and spirit were completely slashed. His body seemed to have lost its vitality, and it withered and cracked, and countless cracks appeared. Lin Sun. Subhuti was shocked and angry, and he tried to break free, but Golden Cicada's palm on his shoulder was terrifyingly stable, and it firmly restrained and suppressed his cultivation of the great perfection of the boundless realm. Not to mention struggling, he couldn't even move a finger. And at this moment Chen Shi, who was fighting fiercely with Ape Ancestor, also narrowed his eyes. He didn't panic, but he suddenly took a deep breath, and his figure rushed forward. In an instant, he forced Ape Ancestor back. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Chen Shi teleported and attacked Absolute Beginning. "Fellow Taoist, this is a battle of the Grand Tao between the two of them, please stop." Suddenly, Golden Cicada had already blocked in front of Chen Shi with a tranquil expression, and he was still controlling Subhuti in his hand. Bang! Chen Shi slashed out with his sword. Golden Cicada's sleeve fluttered, and a miraculous light surged out and silently dispersed this sword. Chen Shi's pupils narrowed slightly. Nearby, Ape Ancestor had already teleported and attacked again, causing Chen Shi to be in a situation where he was attacked from both front and back. Bang! Chen Shi had no choice but to deal with Ape Ancestor's attack, but his expression was much gloomier. Golden Cicada, who exactly are you? Even he didn't expect that Golden Cicada would suddenly betray their camp. Moreover, the timing of Golden Cicada's attack could be said to be a stroke of genius, and it just happened to be at the instant when Lin Sun was about to receive Xia Ji. Subhoodie's life was in danger, and this caused Lin Sun to be caught off guard at that instant as well. This was the opportunity that Absolute Beginning seized to heavily injure Lin Sun. Moreover, such an unexpected event caused the situation of the entire game to change. Lin Sun wasn't just in danger, his master, Subhoodie, and Xia Ji were in a worrying situation as well. So, under the effects of this string of events, it caused Chen Shi and Chen Linkong to be in a bad situation as well. This was like the saying, pull one hair and affect the whole body. On the other hand, Golden Cicada had become the greatest variable in this game. There's more tonight. Chapter 33-23. Before this battle began, Golden Cicada had been very calm. He was like an outsider, coldly watching this battle that could be said to be the most terrifying battle since ancient times. But when he made his move, it could be said that he could summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. In an instant, he used Bodhi's life to disturb Lin Sun's state of mind, triggering a shocking change in one fell swoop. Change meant opportunity. Absolute Beginning took the opportunity to move and gave Lin Sun a fatal blow. Everything happened too fast, and when Chen Shi, Chen Linkong, and Bodhi all understood, the whole situation had already changed. So, sect leader's backup is this Golden Cicada. Even Black Crow only reacted at this moment. His heart was shaken, and he was also shocked by the means that Golden Cicada revealed. Before this, everyone thought that Golden Cicada was just a perfected boundless realm existence. Who could have thought that when he made his move, he could easily reverse the situation of this game? Without a doubt, he was no longer a perfected boundless realm, but an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Absolute Beginning, Chen Shi, Ape Ancestor, and Lin Sun. It was precisely because of this that he could imprison Bodhi so easily and inadvertently. Golden Cicada, to think that I regarded you as a friend. I never thought that you would be so shameless and despicable. Chen Linkong's anger was boundless, and he was stimulated by this scene. This is a game, a struggle for Tao. How can you talk about shameless and despicable? Chen Linkong, don't let anger affect your state of mind. Otherwise, you will only be defeated by Black Crow. Golden Cicada's expression was quiet and peaceful. He paused for a moment and continued. Besides that, I'm not a traitor. Since the beginning, I and all of you have different standpoints. In the past, we could be friends, but in a battle for the Grand Tao like this, we can only be irreconcilable. Speaking of this, he sighed softly, this is the struggle for Tao. His gaze looked at the place where Absolute Beginning and Lin Sun stood in the distance. In fact, at this moment, almost all eyes and minds were focused there. Saying it was slow, but in fact, everything happened in an extremely short period of time. When Lin Sun's state of mind showed a trace of disorder, an Absolute Beginning seized the opportunity to heavily injure him in one move. At the same time his essence, chi, and spirit were chopped off, his body also cracked, and he lost all vitality. Even his divine soul became extremely weak. Essence, chi, and spirit were the three essences of life, and the spirit belonged to the spirit. But to everyone's surprise, in Lin Sun's Taoist body and divine soul, which seemed to have lost their vitality, there was a strong vitality transforming, which belonged to the power of nirvana. It was also the core origin of Lin Sun's Tao. At this critical moment, as Lin Sun suffered this fatal blow, the power of Nirvana Upanishad showed a magical transformation of coming back from death. But his injuries were too severe, and he was like a lamp in a storm that could be extinguished at any time. Tai Chu wouldn't give Lin Sun the chance of nirvana. Therefore, after severely wounding Lin Sun, he launched another attack. But right at this moment, a beautiful figure charged over from afar while the bone spear in her hand pierced through the sky. It was unbelievably swift, and it was completely like she was burning her own vitality. Thus, this attack seemed to be extraordinarily formidable and terrifying. This person was naturally Summer Solstice. Her expression was still as tranquil as ever, and there was not a single ripple on her beautiful face. However, her eyes were filled with flames of hatred. She was not afraid of life and death. She only cared about Lin Sun the most. A long time ago, she had said that in this life, she would advance and retreat with Lin Sun, and also live and die together with him. At this time, seeing Summer Solstice charging over fearlessly, Golden Cicada sighed softly before Tai Chu could make a move. "Little girl, why bother?" When the voice sounded, he had already grasped in the air. Summer Solstice's figure suddenly stagnated, and then she flew uncontrollably to Golden Cicada and was firmly imprisoned there. "Don't worry, your life comes from the wonderful tree of life. Speaking of which, I watched you grow up in your previous life, so I won't kill you," Golden Cicada said softly. Summer Solstice stared at Lin Sun in the distance, and her eyes suddenly dimmed, showing a gray color of defeat. There was nothing sadder than a dead heart. If Lin Sun died, she would not live alone. Without any interference, Tai Chu had already stretched out his hand to cover Lin Sun. He had waited for thousands of years for this fruit of Tao, cultivated by Lin Sun. At this moment it was like the darkest moment and time seemed to stand still. Chen Shi's heart sank. From the beginning to the end, he thought that Lin Sun was an unprecedented variable, and even if there were some changes, they must be from Tai Chu. But he didn't expect that Golden Cicada would become the variable that overturned the whole game. Chen Linkong's eyes almost popped out. He hated Golden Cicada's betrayal and couldn't accept that Golden Cicada, whom he regarded as a kindred spirit, turned out to be his enemy. Pewdie's face was full of sorrow and bitterness. He had been planning for thousands of years, but he didn't expect that in the end, Lin Sun would be implicated and suffer such a disaster because of him. This made him feel unspeakable guilt in his heart. He had felt a trace of uneasiness for a long time, and realized that the trace of killing was very likely to come to him. He had been ready to pay with his life. But he didn't expect that the killing was from Golden Cicada, whom he had admired and regarded as a confidant and fellow practitioner. Boom! The power of Tai Chu covered Lin Sun's whole body and refined him with all its strength, trying to strip all Lin Sun's Tao. But at this moment, a sword sound rang out from Lin Sun. Swoosh! A strand of sword chi shot out explosively and forcefully slashed apart Tai Chu's energy. Tai Chu was caught off guard, and the peerless sword chi surged and even slashed Tai Chu flying. His body was almost slashed apart. This sudden and unexpected event caused Tai Chu's expression to change abruptly, and indescribable rage arose in his Tao heart at this moment. This game was about to come to an end, and Lin Sun's Tao karma was about to be obtained by him. He was about to, but when this sword strike appeared, it caused an unexpected event to occur once more. At this moment, the others present here were shocked by this scene as well. Golden Cicada frowned while his sleeve fluttered, and his warm and tranquil expression was suffused with a wisp of gloominess. Chen Shi seemed to have realized something, and his mind was completely calm. On the other hand, the expressions of Chen Linkong, Pewdie, Heya, and the others had changed as well. None of them had expected that a strand of sword chi would actually soar through the sky and blast Tai Chu back at this extremely dangerous moment. Who did that strand of sword chi come from? They saw a black and white whetstone flash out from Lin Sun's body, and they were glistening and brilliant. A thin figure seemed to have appeared faintly, and it stood on a myriad of strands of ocean of sword insight. Tai Chu couldn't help but let out a long sigh when he saw this scene. Taoist brother, you've already trapped me here for countless years, yet you still intend to ruin my plans? How could he not recognize this person? It was precisely that swordsman that he'd taken to be his lifelong enemy, and that he couldn't help but admire. In the distance, Golden Cicada's expression eased up instead, and he said, "It's just a quintessence brand left within the whetstone. Can't even withstand a single blow." Tai Chu's eyes narrowed slightly as he said with self-ridicule, "So that's how it is. Even a strand of quintessence energy shocked me. Taoist brother's ability really is extraordinary." As he spoke, he'd teleported through space and charged forward explosively. Bang! A terrifying energy of the Grand Tao descended, and then sword howls resounded without end. However, the pair of whetstones were obviously unable to withstand a single blow, and they were easily blasted apart and fell into Tai Chu's hands. This scene caused the hearts of Chun Linkong, Puty, and the others to sink. "I'll take this pair of treasures. Just take it as a memento." Tai Chu chuckled as he put the whetstones away. Bang! However, at this moment, the figure of Ape Ancestor who was fighting fiercely with Chun Shi trembled. His body was actually blasted apart by Chun Shi's own path in the Tao, and blood sprayed everywhere. This scene caused the eyes of Tai Chu, Golden Cicada, and Black Crow to focus, and their hearts shook. At this moment, Chun Shi's aura was simply terrifying to the point it caused their hearts to tremble. Obviously, he was furious and intended to kill Ape Ancestor. "This battle has really disappointed me." Amidst his icy cold and indifferent voice, Chun Shi paid no attention to Ape Ancestor who was heavily injured, and he teleported at the first possible moment to attack Tai Chu. Bang! The heavens and the earth trembled. Chun Shi's might was too great. He hadn't even arrived, but his peerlessly abundant killing intent had already locked onto Tai Chu from afar, and it caused Tai Chu to be unable to help but reveal a serious expression. However, Golden Cicada's figure appeared halfway, and he pushed his palm forward. Bang! An earth-shattering rumble resounded. Golden Cicada's figure staggered back a few steps, but Chun Shi's figure was obstructed. "Fellow Taoist, you can't interfere in this battle." Golden Cicada spoke softly. "Fuck off." Chun Shi slashed out with his sword, and he didn't bother to talk nonsense with Golden Cicada at all. Then, "I can only offend you." Golden Cicada sighed softly. Suddenly, a round and translucent chaotic leaf condensed in front of him, and it suddenly transformed into a divine chain that lashed out. This divine chain was branded with the obscure and magical aura of the Tao of Life. At the same time, Ape Ancestor, who was heavily injured, had arrived not far away. His expression was indifferent as before, but the depths of his eyes were burning with hatred, and it carried a strand of anger. He didn't care about his life at all. Obviously, being defeated by Chun Shi just now had brought a great blow to him, and even though he was heavily injured, he didn't care at all. Rumble! The battle erupted, but Chun Shi's situation was much more dangerous than before. Golden Cicada's cultivation was even stronger than Ape Ancestor's. Coupled with Ape Ancestor's desperate struggle, even if Chun Shi urgently wanted to rescue Lin Sun, he couldn't do it in a short time. In the distance, Subhuti and Xia Ji were imprisoned there, unable to move, and could only watch helplessly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Tai Chu had already attacked again, and he released his power to envelop Lin Sun's figure. Boom! He tried his best to refine it. In the current situation, time was undoubtedly the most precious. Although there had been many twists and turns before, as long as he could take away Lin Sun's Nirvana Tao Karma, this game was tantamount to the dust settled. However, in just a moment, Lin Sun's body and spirit exploded completely. This scene caught Tai Chu off guard. He had never expected that Lin Sun would choose to self-destruct at this moment without hesitation. Boom! Although Lin Sun's spirit, chi, and spirit were destroyed, his Tao karma was still there. When he self-destructed, the terrifying torrent of destruction shook Tai Chu's whole body and sent him flying. He coughed up blood and his hair was scattered. At this moment, the others were also shocked by the scene of Lin Sun's self-destruction. How could Subhudi's hands and feet were cold, and his state of mind was unstable. There were signs that he couldn't bear such a blow. Xia Zhi's clear eyes silently shed 2 lines of tears. The world in front of her seemed to have lost all its luster, and it was full of darkness. Her heart was as dead as ashes, and it was nothing more than this. Chen Linkong's eyes were about to split, and he looked up to the sky and roared sorrowfully. But at this time, Chen Shi's tightly knitted eyebrows suddenly stretched out, as if he had understood something, and his whole body relaxed. And Tai Chu suddenly realized something, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Almost at the same time, Golden Cicada's expression changed completely, and he rarely lost his composure. Living from death, living from nirvana. He wants to completely cut off his Tao karma, and then use the power of nirvana as a guide to integrate the Tao of life and rebuild a new life. Chapter 33-24. Living towards death, living towards nirvana. Golden Cicada and Tai Chu's loss of composure caused Black Crow and Ape Ancestor to have a bad premonition. On the other hand, Subhudi, Chen Linkong, and Xia Zhi were originally extremely sorrowful, but at this moment, they acutely sensed that the situation didn't seem to be as they thought. Could it be boom? A terrifying destructive force spread out from the area where Lin Sun exploded, causing the entire profound God domain to tremble violently. But at the same time, in the depths of the forbidden land of profundity, boundless origin energy of chaos surged. As if it was being pulled, countless tiny streams converged into a torrent, and then countless torrents converged into an ocean. After that, it surged out of the forbidden land of profundity, breaking through the obstruction of the chaotic aura of the profound God domain and charging mightily towards the area where Lin Sun had exploded. It was like the water of the heavenly river had burst its dike and was about to drown this world. The origin of chaos in the forbidden land of profundity has been drawn over. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble. The forbidden land of profundity was a mysterious and ominous place. Since ancient times, people like Chen Shi, Tai Chu, and that swordsman could only comprehend the aura of the forbidden land of profundity in the profound God domain, and they didn't dare to take another step. But now, the origin aura of the forbidden land of profundity was like the water of the heavenly river that covered the heavens and the earth, and it was charging towards the area where Lin Sun had exploded. Who wouldn't be shocked by this unbelievable scene? Living towards death, living towards nirvana. Everyone couldn't help but recall Golden Cicada's words. Open. At this moment, Taichu's figure suddenly charged forward. His dignified and slender figure surged with a terrifying and boundless aura of the great Tao, and it transformed into the Kunlun ruins, the ultimate ruins, the ruins of creation. In the end, they actually condensed into the image of the ruins of profundity. He stood there alone, using his own great Tao to transform into the 4 ruins of Tao, and it was like a natural chasm that wanted to block the origin of the ruins of Tao that was charging over in a formidable array. Boom! An indescribable sound of collision resounded. The natural chasm formed by Taichu suffered an extremely great impact, and it set off a boundless torrent of Tao light. That scene was like a person blocking the water of the heavenly river that had burst its banks, and it was shocking. Even though Chen Shi, the Golden Cicada, and the Ape Ancestor were still fighting intensely, they'd separated a strand of their consciousness to pay attention to all of this, and they couldn't help but be visibly moved at this moment. Everyone could see the beginning's unwillingness. Originally, he was already able to seize Lin Sun's nirvana Tao karma, but Lin Sun's self-detonation not only destroyed his actions, Lin Sun was even realizing the change of being reborn from nirvana. How could the beginning accept this? In other words, He couldn't tolerate such an unprecedented change at this moment. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would lose this game. Rumble, rumble, the quintessence energy that charged out from the forbidden grounds of profundity grew more and more vast, and it struck absolute beginning's figure more and more ferociously as well. The torrent was branded with all sorts of profundities related to the Tao of life like samsara, spirit bestowal, spirit, energy, spirit. All of them were the core Taos of this chaotic era. Such an impact caused absolute beginning to seem as if he was fighting the entire forbidden area of profundity by himself, and it was obvious how dangerous it was. Puff! In merely a short moment, absolute beginning coughed up blood from the corners of his mouth, yet his eyes were filled with madness and resolution. I've waited for countless years, yet I wasn't waiting for such an outcome. His voice was low, and his entire body seemed as if it was burning at this moment. Not to mention that I only want to seek an even higher path towards the Tao. If I'm unable to attain it, then I might as well die. An unrestrained, insane, and ruthless aura surged into appearance from his body, and his cultivation was released to the limit and blazed to the limit. After lying dormant for countless years and painstakingly deducing the Grand Tao, this unprecedented change had finally arrived with great difficulty. Even if he died, he still intended to fight. Bang! The profound God domain shook while the heavens and the earth seemed as if the heavens and the earth were collapsing. Absolute beginning's figure was like a boundlessly high chasm that stood before Lin Sun and refused to retreat. Moreover, he didn't allow the quintessence energy of the forbidden area of profundity to approach the area Lin Sun resided in. His extremely resolute and fearless attitude caused the hearts of Chen Shi, Subhuti, and Chen Linkong to be unable to help but shake. Even if they were enemies, could anyone in the world deny absolute beginning strength? But in next to no time, absolute beginning coughed up blood repeatedly. His countenance was pale, his hair disheveled, and numerous horrifying bloody cracks had appeared on his imposing figure. But he didn't retreat. He would rather die than retreat before he could fulfill his wish. Even if he was heavily injured, even if death stood before him, he wouldn't retreat. Sect Master! At this moment, Black Crow cried out loudly with sorrow. Her exquisite and beautiful face was covered in tears, and her scarlet-red eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. After all, she was in competition with Chen Linkong, yet at this moment, her heart shook and revealed a flaw, causing her to be directly struck by an expanse of sword chi, causing her delicate body to be drenched in blood. Under the pain, her eyes almost split apart from rage, and she seemed as if she'd gone mad as she said, "Isn't it just death? Why would I be afraid?" She was about to fight desperately. Chen Linkong suddenly withdrew his attack and said coldly, "I'm not a despicable and shameless bastard like Golden Cicada, and I disdain to take advantage of another's state." Black Crow was stunned, and her beautiful face changed indeterminately. Then, she turned around with great difficulty as if she'd lost her soul, and she shot her gaze towards that proud and resolute imposing figure in the distance once more. Her heart convulsed with intense pain, and her entire person seemed to be on the verge of collapse as tears poured down like rain. The only person who treated her well in this world was absolute beginning. It had always been like this. It had always been like this. Even her grand completion boundless realm cultivation was all built by Tai Chu expending tremendous painstaking effort to help her build it. At this moment, when she saw absolute beginning resolutely going to fight to the death, how could her heart not hurt? Chen Linkong couldn't help but sigh in his heart as he looked at Black Crow's devastated appearance. How despicable and shameless was Golden Cicada, but he didn't kill Subhuti and Summer Solstice. He, Chen Linkong, felt that he wouldn't take advantage of someone's state to take their life. If that was the case, then what was there to talk about competing for the great Tao? He, Chen Linkong, had his own pride and perseverance. Bang! Suddenly, absolute beginning's body shattered and exploded, and a rain of blood sprayed everywhere. Only his primordial spirit remained. But he was still completely oblivious as he blocked there. What courageously going to death? What facing death with equanimity? In his opinion, all of it wasn't. He was just unwilling. He only killed for the sake of proving his Tao, and he had no regrets even if he died. But right at this moment, an indifferent voice resounded, "You've lost." These 3 words caused Absolute Beginning's primordial spirit to tremble. It also caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble in unison. Then, an illusory figure walked out from the area where Lin Sun had exploded, and with a flick of his sleeve, Absolute Beginning's primordial spirit flew out uncontrollably. "No!" Absolute Beginning roared loudly and wanted to charge forward madly, but his primordial spirit had already been forcefully restrained there. On the other hand, that illusory figure was like a place where all streams returned to the origin, and the source energy that surged over from the forbidden land of profundity poured into his figure in a mighty manner. After that, his illusory figure condensed bit by bit and transformed ceaselessly, and the might on his body became more and more obscure and marvelous. In the end, his entire body was like chaos that condensed the Kunlun ruins, ruins of creation, ruins of end, ruins of profundity of Tao. After that, the signs of the changing of eras appeared, and boundless grand Taos were born. These changes were witnessed by everyone present. Everyone's expressions were different, and they each had their own emotions in their hearts. At this moment, Golden Cicada, who was fighting Qin, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh. His expression was filled with desolation and waning interest as he said, "Fellow Taoist, there's no need to continue fighting." He turned around with the intention of leaving. Bang! The force of Chun Shi's palm spread out, but Golden Cicada seemed to be completely unaware. In the next moment, his figure was blasted flying by the force of the palm, and he coughed up blood while his countenance turned pale. Chun Shi frowned. In the end, he endured it and didn't seize this opportunity to kill Golden Cicada. On the other hand, Golden Cicada only smiled bitterly and shook his head after suffering such a blow, and he didn't fight back. He walked over to Subhuti and Xia Ji with a complicated gaze as he sighed. "I've lost." These 3 words seemed to contain an endless sense of loss and bitterness. No one knew what Golden Cicada was thinking at this moment. Subhuti was silent. His eyes carried hatred, rage, and a wisp of indescribable sorrow. He was unable to forgive Golden Cicada's actions of betrayal. As for Xia Ji, she paid no attention to Golden Cicada from the beginning until the end. Her eyes gazed towards the distance. The figure that seemed like chaos was emanating an unprecedented pulse of vitality, and boundless quintessence of all profundities were surging into his cultivation, causing him to experience an inconceivable transformation. However, Xia Ji didn't care about all of this. All she knew was that Lin Sun was still alive. A string of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes, and her gorgeous and peerlessly beautiful face revealed a brilliant smile. "Supreme Ancestor, do you still intend to not admit defeat?" Chun Shi shouted loudly. The ape ancestor remained indifferent and attacked with all his might while his gaze was indifferent and emotionless. When one stepped into the Tao with emotionlessness, how could one pay attention to the great terror of life and death? Bang! Chun Shi didn't hesitate any longer. His sleeve fluttered while the phenomenon of samsara surged into appearance before him, and it once again suppressed the sovereign sex master who'd once stood proudly in the world. "Last time, I suppressed you in samsara forever. This time, it won't happen again." Samsara circulated while an obscure and profound energy surged into appearance. The ape ancestor's figure seemed as if it was being disassembled, and it gradually transformed into a blurry image before it vanished completely. At the moment before his death, the emotionless eyes of the ape ancestor actually carried a trace of relief, and it vanished in an instant. Bang! Chun Shi withdrew samsara and swept the surroundings with his gaze. Golden Cicada remained silent and seemed to be disappointed and lonely. Subhuti and Xiaji stared fixedly at Lin Sun, who stood in the distance. The former's expression was filled with excitement and joy while the latter was smiling with tears. Heiya's delicate figure trembled slightly while she clenched her fists tightly, and her exquisite face was covered in sorrow. On the other hand, Absolute Beginning's restrained soul core was still trying to struggle, and it was resolute and unwilling to give up or lower its head. Chun Linkong was silent on the other hand, and there was a complicated expression in the space between his brows. He'd probably never imagined that so many unexpected variables would appear in this battle for the Grand Tao. After that, Chun Shi gazed at Lin Sun as well. There was no doubt that Chun Shi's self-detonation of facing death and rebirth was the greatest variable that had turned the situation around. He'd placed himself in a hopeless situation and attained the most inconceivable transformation. This transformation had caused Absolute Beginning to disregard everything and fight with his life on the line, yet it was equivalent to Absolute Beginning's loss in this battle. It caused Golden Cicada to lower its head, Heiya to be filled with grief, and it caused the ape ancestor to have no chance to turn the situation around. Chapter 33-25. All the people in the mysterious god realm gradually quieted down. Between heaven and earth, Lin Sun opened his eyes. At that moment, it felt as if the world was trembling, and the endless world suddenly glowed with vitality. However, when they looked at Lin Sun's figure, they found that compared with before, there was no difference, not even a trace of aura. Before, they could still feel the charm of, as big as chaos, empty. But now, even that charm had disappeared. All aura returned to nothingness. Seeing this, Golden Cicada lost his soul and murmured in his heart, "This fate, after all, doesn't belong to me." In the distance, the primordial spirit of Taichu gave up struggling at this moment. He looked at Lin Sun in a daze, as if looking at a road of great Tao that he had longed to reach. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and said, "I have indeed lost this game of chess, Hierarch." Black Crow couldn't help rushing over with tears streaming down her face. "What are you crying for?" Taichu looked up at her and said with a smile, "Since it's a game, there is a winner and a loser. As I said before, there is no absolute thing in the world. Even if you painstakingly plan for countless years, it can't compare to the change caused by a variable." Black Crow lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. Taichu reached out and rubbed her head, saying gently, "Don't cry, you know I can't see tears." Black Crow wiped the corners of her eyes, forced herself to restrain her inner grief, raised her small face and said, "Hierarch, in my heart you didn't lose." Taichu smiled and looked at Lin Sun in the distance, saying, "You just look at me like this. Are you going to let me kill myself?" Lin Sun shook his head and said, "I hope you won't die." Taichu was stunned and fell into silence. After a long time, he couldn't help laughing. "Don't you hate me? Before, Golden Cicada threatened you with the life of Bodhi, which made you lose a little bit of sense of advance and retreat. It also gave me the opportunity to seriously injure you. I almost lost my life. This is fate." Lin Sun said indifferently, "If there is no reason, how can I be now? What's more, even if Golden Cicada killed my master, I was sure to save him." After a pause, he sighed softly, "I just didn't expect that the person I have always respected and trusted turned out to be a different kind of person." There was a trace of sadness in his voice. Yes, when Golden Cicada suddenly threatened Lin Sun with Puti's life, the reason why Lin Sun was shocked and angry was not whether Puti's life could be saved, but Golden Cicada's betrayal. This was the root of Lin Sun's sense at that moment. "Golden Cicada, Lin Sun down now. Are you?" "Bodhi in the distance," Chen said coldly. Chen Linkong also looked over. There was a trace of complicated emotions in his cold eyes. If possible, he really didn't want Golden Cicada to be a traitor. Subhuti and Xiaji turned their gazes towards Golden Cicada as well. "Golden Cicada," the Golden Cicada thought for a moment and said calmly, "I lost because I wanted to snatch a Dharma by force. I am sincerely convinced. After a cicada for a rafter. And he said, he and cicada, he. He said and said, he, and said. After a long time he asked, Senior, do you remember the first time we met in the mulberry forest? You told me about the chat and the life of the 1,000 tribulations emperor. Do you remember all of that? Golden Cicada nodded and said with reminiscence, Yes, I once said that when I met you, it was fate. There is no need for a reason. At that time, did you already know that there would be such a day? Lin Sun asked. Golden Cicada was silent for a moment and said, I once listened to your master expound the Great Way for 20 years outside Mountain of Mind and Heart. I once went to the ultimate ruins to seek the lost nirvana source of the Tree of Life. I also heard the Taoist hymn related to the eternal lotus left by your master. He took a deep breath and said, In this way, when I met you, I had a hunch that you might be the eternal lotus in the future and get the nirvana ultimacy. Lin Sun frowned slightly. If you want the nirvana ultimacy, why didn't you kill me at that time? Golden Cicada sneered. Little friend in your heart, am I that kind of unscrupulous person? Lin Sun shook his head and said without hesitation, Of course you are not such a person. That's why I feel puzzled and can't believe that you would do such a thing in this game. Golden Cicada smiled bitterly and said no more. Pewty, who had been silent all the time, couldn't help but say, Golden Cicada, I just want to ask you, in those years before today, did you regard us as friends? Golden Cicada looked at Pewty and said with a smile, I can't have both the Great Way and friendship. This is the most painful thing in my heart today. Pewty seemed to understand, and his expression became relaxed. He said, In this way I feel at ease. Chun Linkong said, Golden Cicada, you have admitted defeat. Why can't you tell us the reason one by one? He was still very angry. Chen Shi also frowned. It was obvious that Golden Cicada had other secret. Lin Sun asked, When did you and Tai Chu form an alliance? But at this time, Tai Chu laughed. He and I are the same person. His words were earth-shattering. Everyone was taken aback. Golden Cicada was silent and didn't speak. This reminded Lin Sun of the relationship between Divine Emperor of Eternal Night and Xia Ji. They were originally the same person, but now they were no longer bound to each other. In other words, Tai Chu, Golden Cicada and I are the same person. Tai Chu said, However, we are not reincarnated and cut off the connection with each other. We are just 3 doppelgangers, formed by Golden Cicada's body. Have you heard of the rumor of 3 pure ones? The essence of it is just like the connection between me, Golden Cicada and Tai Chu. This was even more surprising and moved Chun Shi and Lin Sun. Before this game, I have said that since it is a battle of the Great Way, I will not leave a way out. If I want to leave a way out, Golden Cicada and Tai Chu can both be my way out. When Tai Chu said this, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh and said, But even I didn't expect that in such an advantageous situation, I couldn't resist a variable in the end. The atmosphere in the field was silent. Golden Cicada, Tai Chu and Tai Chu originated from one. This fact seemed so abrupt and completely unexpected. But when they thought about it carefully, it was reasonable. After all, in today's game, Golden Cicada, Tai Chu and Tai Chu were indeed in the same camp. Golden Cicada, why are you silent at this moment? Are you worried that these Taoist friends here will know the relationship between you, me and Tai Chu? Tai Chu said loudly. Golden Cicada's eyes were complicated and he said, We have lost. Why do you still want to get to the bottom of this? If you don't say it, then I will. Tai Chu said coldly. Golden Cicada said bitterly, Tai Chu, are you blaming me for not using my full strength in this game? Absolute Beginning went silent for a moment before he said with an expressionless face, Do you think that if you killed Subhoodie, Xia Ji, and Chun Linkong at the first possible moment, would Chun Shi and Lin Sun have a chance to turn the situation around? This assumption made everyone present shrink their eyes. With the cultivation shown by Golden Cicada before, there were indeed many opportunities to kill Putti, Xia Ji and Chen Linkong. But he didn't do so. Haven't you seen through it yet? Lin Sun has already integrated the profound meaning of nirvana into his life. Even if he killed these people, he could save them one by one in the future with his control of the Tao of life and his understanding of the power of the entire chaotic era. Golden Cicada said softly, even if we did this, we couldn't stop Lin Sun's path of nirvana. His Taoist karma can't be taken away by force. Tai Chu's expression flickered and he said, I didn't understand it before. Although I understand it now, I'm still very unwilling. Lin Sun's self-explosion led to a path of nirvana that was, facing death and life, which made him understand that, as Golden Cicada said, Lin Sun's Taoist karma of nirvana couldn't be taken away by force. But although he understood it, he still couldn't accept it. Therefore, he questioned Golden Cicada at this moment, Tai Chu is dead, and you and I have lost. Then tell me, what have we been waiting for since ancient times? Nothing? Golden Cicada's voice became lower and lower, and he said, this is called fate. It can't be forced. Fate? Bullsh *T fate. The beginning was obviously excited. Only cowards will attribute all failures to fate. Golden Cicada sighed softly and said no more. On the other hand, Lin Sun, Chen Shi, and the others noticed all of these scenes, and they had complicated feelings in their hearts. Obviously, although Tai Chu, Golden Cicada and Tai Chu came from the same body, the three of them had their own pursuit of Taoism and their own state of mind. It was undeniable that Golden Cicada had never deliberately schemed against and harmed those Taoist friends around him before, such as Putti, Chen Linkong and Lin Sun. Even in today's game, he only threatened Lin Sun with Putti's life and prevented Chen Shi from interfering in the battle between Lin Sun and Tai Chu. And he had expected that even if he killed Putti, Lin Sun, who had mastered the profound meaning of nirvana, could save Putti. His betrayal was the root cause of Lin Sun's injury. And the root cause of his betrayal was that at the beginning, he, like Tai Chu and Tai Chu, originated from the same body and stood in the same camp. In this way, it was not really a betrayal in the real sense. In the final analysis, as he said, the Tao cannot coexist. Tai Chu, if you lose, you lose. No one in this world is invincible. My mistake is that I never really recognized the Tao that you and Tai Chu seek. But now, it's a little boring to talk about this. After a long time, Golden Cicada looked at Tai Chu again and said softly, I never regret what I have done today. Tai Chu stared at him, and his expression changed for a long time. Finally, he shook his head and said nothing. The rise and fall of fate, everything has been settled today. Everyone, farewell. Golden Cicada looked at Lin Sun, Putti, Chen Linkong, Xia Ji, Chen Shi and others one by one. Finally, he withdrew his gaze and smiled slightly. That smile was quiet and peaceful. On the other hand, his figure seemed as if it was burning, and it rustled as it transformed into ashes that dispersed into nothingness. Vaguely, everyone seemed to hear a cicada's cry, revealing a sense of relief and liberation. Chapter 33:26. Golden Cicada was gone. Completely disappeared from the world. Thinking of what happened today, they recalled the memories related to Golden Cicada. Everyone couldn't help but feel lost. Did they hate it? Not really. Didn't hate it? It didn't seem like it. Everyone's emotions were subtle and complicated. For Putti and Chen Linkong, Golden Cicada was a confidant, a good friend who used to drink and discuss Taoism with them and walk side by side. For Lin Sun, Golden Cicada was a senior worthy of trust and admiration. In Chen Shi and Xia Ji's opinion, the existence of the Golden Cicada had never caused them to feel a trace of hostility before this. But it was an undeniable fact that Golden Cicada, Tai Chu and Tai Shang came from the same side. Even though they had their own way of seeking Taoism, they stood in the same camp when it came to seeking the power of nirvana. Because of this, when Golden Cicada disappeared from the world, people would be in a complicated mood and couldn't calm down. In the distance, Taichu stared at the place where Golden Cicada disappeared in a daze. He seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. After a long time, he looked at Lin Sun and said, "Can you spare Black Crow's life?" Black Crow trembled and opened her eyes wide. In her impression, Hierarch had experienced many eras and endless years in his life. He was used to the ups and downs of the world and experienced the hardships of life and death, but he had never asked anyone for help. But now he asked Lin Sun for her sake. "I don't want to." "Don't," Black Crow lost control and hissed. "It's just death. I'll accompany you. I'm not afraid." Taichu smiled and ignored her. He just looked at Lin Sun. "She was by my side when she was young and she followed by my side. I can guarantee that she never had the chance to do evil in the past. Even when you entered the ruins of Dao and she wished for nothing more than to kill you, she wasn't able to fulfill her wish and was kept by my side instead." Taichu said softly, "It would be a pity if such a good girl died because of me." "Yes." In the distance, Lin Sun nodded. The beginning heaved a sigh of relief, smiled and cupped his hands. "Thank you. Sect leader, I've already said that I'll accompany you. Even if we die, we'll die together." Black Crow raised his small face and stared at Absolute Beginning. Tears flowed endlessly from his blood-red crystalline eyes, but his voice was intermittent. Then, his body went limp and fell into Absolute Beginning's embrace. Her life force was rapidly fading away, and her delicate body was turning cold. The smile on the Beginning's face froze. He lowered his head and looked at the girl in his arms. After a while, he raised his trembling hand and gently stroked Heiya's long hair. He said softly, "I told you a long time ago that I hate to see people cry, but why didn't you listen to me?" His voice was filled with helplessness, frustration, and a trace of unconcealable grief. This scene caused Lin Sun, Chen Shi, and the others in the distance to be unable to help but be moved. Die for love? Martyrdom? Or could it be that he didn't want to live alone in the world, so he would rather use this kind of silent method to end his life in front of his closest relatives? "I can help get her back." In the distance, Lin Sun spoke. Heiya's actions caused him to recall Xia Zhi's resolute appearance of disregarding everything to save him, and a strange feeling surged in his heart. There's no need. Perhaps letting her live is more painful than dying like this. The Beginning lowered his head and stared at Heiya in his arms, and a wisp of tears surged in his eyes. "Little Crow, only you would be so foolish in this world." After that, he raised his head and swept Lin Sun, Chen Shi, and the others with a smile. "Everyone, the Beginning, am extremely happy in today's game, and the unwillingness in my heart has vanished. Perhaps my only regret is that I wasn't able to see that swordsman again. But this is good as well. Even if I die, I'll be able to leave behind a memory." He smiled as he held Heiya's delicate body in high spirits, and he seemed to have become proud, unrestrained, and composed like he was at the beginning. However, he and Heiya in his arms gradually transformed into an illusory rain of light, and they gradually dispersed in the heavens and the earth before leaving just like that. It was impossible for them to appear again. At the place where they vanished, there was a pair of sword whetstones left behind. At this moment, Chen Shi cupped his hands from afar. "Farewell." On the other hand, Lin Sun walked forward and put away the pair of sword whetstones. "I'll leave behind a memory. I wonder if that senior swordsman will be happy or feel sorry for you when he finds out that you perished here," Lin Sun muttered softly. As he spoke, Xia Zhi had already rushed over and hugged Lin Sun tightly. Her beautiful face was filled with joy and relief that came from the bottom of her heart. In the distance, Subhuti and Chen Linkong couldn't help but smile when they saw this. At this moment, silence was better than words. On this day, the unprecedented game that had been waiting for countless years came to an end. Golden Cicada, the Beginning, and the Beginning had perished and vanished from the world. The 9 destiny path lords, heaven shaman, and sure hidden in the void world, had been eternally suppressed by Chen Shi. On this day, Lin soon achieved the ultimate breakthrough of living towards death and living towards nirvana. He stepped onto the road of life in a real sense, condensed the origin of the 4 ruins of the Tao into one, and comprehended the core secret of the chaotic era. A few days later, the mysterious God domain. Lin Sun, who was drinking and chatting with Chen Shi, was suddenly stunned and said, "Senior, do you want to hear a story?" Chen Shi said with interest, "About who?" "A golden cicada." "So it's him, a long time ago." It was so long ago that when this chaotic era had just been born, a golden cicada had traversed the boundless void and flapped its wings into this chaotic era. It was begging. He sought a supreme great Tao that was related to life and also to fate. It had experienced ups and downs and traveled through the chaotic era before finally arriving in front of the tree of life. It lay on it and quietly sensed the growth and transformation of this tree. It was in a daze for countless years. This tree had witnessed the formation of the 4 Tao ruins from scratch, witnessed the evolution of the era from its embryonic form to its complete form, and witnessed the rise and fall of the civilizations of numerous eras, and this golden cicada had witnessed the transformation and growth of this tree. Finally, one day, the golden cicada sensed the profundities of rebirth, and this caused it to be extremely delighted. It felt that this was the miraculous fortune it had been searching bitterly for, and it was sufficient to deal with the bottleneck and hidden dangers on its path towards the Tao. But right at this moment, a calamity descended, and it destroyed the branches and leaves of the tree of life, and it shattered the grand Tao of life that was born on the tree. It even caused the quintessence of rebirth to suffer an impact. The golden cicada had dodged in advance at the instant the calamity descended, and it watched helplessly as all of this occurred, and it felt extreme pain in its heart. A strand of fate had brushed past just like that. The countless years it had waited for and the painstaking efforts it had put in had all been wasted. No one knew that the reason the golden cicada had come to this chaotic era to seek the grand Tao of life and fate was precisely to deal with the hidden dangers in its heart. But this hidden danger had erupted when it witnessed the calamity that the tree of life had suffered. One's cultivation had been split into 3. One had transformed into the absolute beginning and carried out the Tao of forgetfulness. One had transformed into the supreme being and carried out the Tao of forgetfulness. The other had transformed into the golden cicada and carried out the Tao of forgetfulness. After he heard this story, Chen Shi drank a cup of wine and said, "So, in this way, there are other chaotic eras outside this chaotic era?" "Exactly." Lin Sun said, "However, only by stepping onto the grand Tao of life would one have the ability to leave this chaotic era." "How did the golden cicada come to be?" asked Chen Shi. Lin Sun said, "He and the true bodies of the absolute beginning and the supreme being had naturally stepped onto the grand Tao of life when they came to this chaotic era. However, a problem had arisen in his path towards the Tao, and a problem had arisen in his heart as well. That's why he bitterly searched for a solution." Chen Shi nodded and said, "No wonder the absolute beginning, the supreme being, and the golden cicada had their own paths towards the Tao and obsessions, and there was even an extremely great contradiction and conflict in their understanding of each other. It's very likely that it was caused by the hidden dangers in their hearts at the very beginning. Yes, only the golden cicada retained the true heart of his true body. Unfortunately, because of his cultivation, it caused him to be in a muddle-headed and absent-minded state for most of the time." Lin Sun said, "The reason is that his true body is a cicada. The mushroom in the morning doesn't know the new, and the cicada doesn't know the spring and autumn. In the secular world, cicadas only appear in summer, and can't see the scenery of spring and autumn. If the golden cicada's Tao is like this, then it's the defect of his life." Chen Shi suddenly understood. "Exactly," Lin Sun said, This is also the reason why the cultivation of the senior golden cicada fluctuated in the past. Although people in various eras have seen the senior golden cicada, very few people know that he is an extremely extraordinary existence. If I were the golden cicada, I would cut off the Tao of the absolute beginning and the Supreme Being, and integrate my own Tao in order to seek perfection and verify nirvana again in order to solve the hidden dangers in my heart. Speaking of this, Chen Shi couldn't help but shake his head. No, how can a person like the golden cicada not know how to verify the Tao by this method? It can only be said that the root of the disaster lies in the original state of mind of his true body. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. I comprehended Senior Golden Cicada's past when I was deducing the aura of the Tree of Life just now, and only now did I understand why he would join forces with the Absolute Beginning and the Supreme Being to seize the energy of rebirth. In the end, it's an obsession in the heart of his true body. Chen Shi nodded, and then he suddenly asked, "Where did the calamity that targets the Tree of Life come from?" Lin Sun pondered deeply and said, "I can only vaguely deduce that this calamity comes from outside this chaos era, and it targets the path of life. If I want to confirm it a step further, then perhaps I can only obtain some clues after I reconstruct the path of life to a complete state." Chen Shi said, "So in this way, only after I reconstruct the quintessence of the Tree of Life with the energy of rebirth will the Tree of Life be able to manifest in this chaos era?" "Exactly. However, if I want to accomplish this, then I don't know how many years I'll have to spend to reconstruct the quintessence of the Tree of Life with this little bit of strength I possess. So, I need Senior's help in this matter." As he spoke, Lin Sun pointed out with the tip of his finger, and then a ball of light that was fused with the profundities of rebirth floated up into appearance and flew towards Chen Shi from afar. Chen Shi was stunned, and then he laughed with ridicule. "You're worried that I wouldn't be able to accept the profundities of rebirth, so you came up with such a reason that I can't refuse?" Lin Sun started laughing as well. "Wrong. I just want to find someone to share the burden of reconstructing the Tao of life. After all, I don't have the time to stay in the ruins of life forever." Chen Shi rubbed his nose and said, "So you're trying to make me do hard labor. However, I really can't refuse this." He roared with laughter and asked, "Where do you intend to go?" Lin Sun let out a long sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Home." Chapter 33-27. Hidden World. Only now do I understand why Golden Cicada was so sure that the great silence lifeless tribulation came from the ruins of Tao. Chen Linkong sighed lightly. Many years ago, when he tried to find the mastermind behind the calamity of the era, it was Golden Cicada who told him that the calamity was related to the ruins of Tao. However, after understanding it now, Chen Linkong's emotions were very complicated and gloomy. "Fellow Taoist, Golden Cicada didn't harm us. There's no need to talk about him anymore." Subhuti smiled as he spoke, but a trace of complicated emotions appeared in his eyes. Golden Cicada, he was destined to be a fellow Taoist that neither he nor Chen Linkong could forget. As the two of them conversed, Lin Sun arrived with Xia Ji and told them about his decision to leave and return to his hometown. Both Subhuti and Chen Linkong were not surprised. The matter in the ruins of Tao had been resolved. With Lin Sun's temperament, he would naturally return to his hometown and meet his friends and family. At the very least, he had to make arrangements for them before he could concentrate on rebuilding the Tao of life in the ruins of Tao. Chen Linkong chuckled and said, "Young friend Lin, don't forget to inform me when you and Miss Xia Ji get married." Lin Sun smiled and said, "Of course." Xia Ji smiled faintly as well. Lin Sun looked at Subhuti and said, "Master, I'll have to trouble you to take care of my old friends in the ruins of Tao." He was talking about Du So, the old priest, Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli, Ren Futian, and the others. Subhuti agreed with a smile. "When you return, don't forget to go to the Sea of Destiny and meet your senior brothers and sisters. Tell them not to worry about us anymore." "All right." Lin Sun nodded in agreement. That day, Lin Sun left the ruins of Dao with Xiaji. Kunlun Ruins, Sea of Destiny. Linwu Realm. Ruo Su sat in front of a stream and was chatting with Zhongqiu. I've been feeling uneasy for the past few days. I don't know why, Ruo Su pondered deeply and said. I've thought about it over and over again. Those enemies in the Sea of Destiny had already been wiped out by youngest junior brother before he left all those years ago. It's destined that there won't be any calamity that can affect us. On the other hand, fourth junior brother has been cultivating in the ruins of End. With his intelligence and methods, even if he encounters danger, he can easily resolve it. Zhongqiu frowned. Are you worried about little junior brother and master? Ruo Su nodded. Being uneasy doesn't necessarily mean that something bad will happen. Don't overthink it, Zhongqiu said softly. Ruo Su nodded and said, I do hope that when little junior brother returns one day, he will be able to rescue all those junior brothers and sisters who perished in the past. Zhongqiu sighed instead and said, It's very difficult. Those junior brothers and junior sisters aren't like eldest senior brother. They perished too long ago, and the vitality they left behind is practically negligible. It's too difficult for little junior brother to bring them back to life. Right at this moment, a voice of laughter resounded. Second senior brother, this isn't a difficult matter to me. Little junior brother. Ruo Su and Zhongqiu were stunned, and they stood up abruptly. They didn't know when Lin Sun's figure had appeared out of thin air, but they didn't notice him at all. Why did you come back? Ruo Su was shocked and in disbelief. It had only been a little over 10 years since Lin Sun left the Ocean of Destiny and headed to the ruins of Dao. Everything has been resolved, so I came back to take a look. As he spoke, Lin Sun spoke of his experiences in the ruins of Dao in a simple and concise manner, yet it caused Ruo Su and Zhongqiu to be horrified. In the end, besides feeling relaxed when they found out that Golden Cicada, Taichu and Taishang had perished, they couldn't help but sigh endlessly with emotion. Wait here, I'll go call the other junior brothers and sisters. Ruo Su smiled and left hastily. In next to no time, Lin Sun saw the other senior brothers and sisters like Li Xianwei, Jun Huan, Qi Jun, Bo Swanzi, Shuya, Qing Ting, Pu Zhen, Moon in the Well, Qingyu, and so on and so forth. However, he didn't see eldest senior brother. This caused him to be unable to avoid feeling curious. Later on, he asked about it and found out that eldest senior brother had just left the Ocean of Destiny a few years ago, and he'd ridden the Grand Dao Lotus to head to the ruins of Dao. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel speechless. However, when he thought about how he still had to head to the ruins of Dao in the future, and he was bound to be able to meet eldest senior brother, he felt at ease in his heart. On that very day, a banquet was held, and all the disciples of Fang Siyuan drank and chatted happily. After the banquet ended, Lin Sun decided to save those senior brothers and sisters who'd perished many years ago. Within a hall, Zhongqiu, Ruo Su, and the others held their breaths in concentration as they waited silently. Lin Sun stood alone at the center of the hall while his sleeves fluttered, and strands of obscure and miraculous samsara surged into appearance. In his days, it seemed as if boundless time and space were circulating and changing within it. In Lin Sun's possession were the belongings of those senior brothers and sisters who'd perished. As he sensed the aura on these belongings, his divine sense had already surged into samsara, and he traced the past as he wandered through the magnificent and unfathomable samsara. In merely a short moment, with a command in his heart, the energy of the profundity of nirvana surged into appearance on the tip of Lin Sun's finger. Along with a rain of light, a figure gradually condensed into form, and it transformed into a handsome and high-spirited man in a Taoist robe. Its junior brother Xian Kong, Zhongqiu, Ruo Su, and the others were excited as they'd recognized the man. He was exactly Xian Kong, who was ranked 49th. But they didn't dare to make a sound, because Lin Sun was still going on. Before long, Lin Sun's fingertips moved again. As the rain of light flowed, a man with an honest appearance and a cloth robe gradually condensed. It's junior brother Guyupu. All of a sudden, Zhongqiu, Ruosu, and the others couldn't help but smile. They became more and more excited, and they were even shocked to the point of dizziness. Because the power of resurrection was more than just a miracle, it was simply a reversal of life and death, and a new life from death. In the following period of time, figures emerged one after another from the rain of light. There were both men and women. For example, Jixiu, the 14th successor, Wu Zong, the 26th successor, Wen Lu, the 37th successor, Gu Qingxiu, the 41st successor, Xian Yuanzi, and so on. When all the dead senior brothers and sisters were saved, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and wisps of spiritual qi rushed into the minds of these senior brothers and sisters. Suddenly, Guyupu, Xian Kong, and the others opened their eyes as if they had just woken up from a dream. Zhongqiu, Ruosu, and the others could no longer restrain their excitement and rushed up. Junior brother Guyupu, do you still remember us? Haha, senior brother Jixiu, why are you so surprised? Can't you believe that you're alive? Senior brother Wuzong, there's something I haven't told you. Now, I finally have the chance to say it. That is, I can't just let go of the money you owe me. The hall was drowned in the voices of excitement and joy. Lin Sun was also very happy to see this scene. I'll find a chance to save all my dead friends and relatives, he thought to himself. They stayed in the Sea of Destiny for a few more days. Lin Sun and Xia Ji left the Sea of Destiny under the escort of the senior brothers and sisters of Mind and Heart Mountain. The ruins of fate. The divine city of fate. When Lin Sun saw the outline of the city from afar, he couldn't help but feel a ripple in his heart. When he went to the Sea of Destiny, he had settled all his friends and relatives in the divine city of fate so that they wouldn't be destroyed by the changing of the era. Now, with his cultivation, he could naturally stop the era of calamity from happening. However, no matter how high his cultivation was, he wasn't a plant after all. He had his own emotions. When he returned after a long time, how could he not be excited? After a long while, he took a deep breath and suppressed his cultivation. Sometimes, things that could be sensed with a thought would lose some of the fun and beauty of life. For example, the surprise of seeing something again after a long time. Master? Therefore, when Lin Sun and Xia Ji approached the divine city of fate, they were immediately sensed by the spirit of order, Wushuang. Whoosh! A ray of white light appeared and turned into a pure and beautiful girl in white. Her big eyes were filled with surprise. Don't disturb the others. I want to see them personally. Lin Sun smiled. Wushuang nodded firmly and beamed. Master, the divine city of fate has not encountered any disturbances in the past few years. Everyone is doing well. Her expression seemed to be saying, Master, please praise me. Lin Sun smiled and stretched out his hand to touch Wushuang's pure white forehead. From now on, focus on cultivation. There will be a day when you will prove your Tao and transform. Boom! Wushuang felt an unparalleled wave of life rushing into her body. She could clearly feel that her body that was formed from the power of order had the rhythm of life. She glowed with true essence, qi, and spirit. Because of this, she also possessed spirituality, talent, and wisdom. After a long time, when all the transformations were over, she was in a trance and stammered, Master, I have my own life? Lin Sun nodded with a smile. How do you feel? With his current comprehension and control of the Tao of life, it wasn't difficult for him to give a stone life. Moreover, it was even easier to give a divine-level order like Wushuang a real life. Wushuang immediately beamed with joy and cheered, Wonderful! It was also at this moment that she experienced emotions such as excitement, joy, and excitement that she had never experienced before. This was undoubtedly too wonderful for a spirit of order like her. Don't get excited. Lead the way, let's go home. Lin Sun said with a smile. Okay. Wushuang led the way. Along the way, Her pure little face was brimming with smiles. Her eyes were bright and sparkling. Until they arrived in front of the divine city of creation. Lin Sun took a deep breath and looked at Xia Ji with a smile. He said, "Let's get married when we return this time. I must hold a grand wedding for us." Xia Ji responded with an unconcealable joy in her clear eyes. This was what Lin Sun had promised her a long time ago. Now it was finally going to be realized. "Let's go." Lin Sun held Xia Ji's slender, snow-white hand and walked into the divine city of creation. P.S. After the final showdown at the Ruins of Wonders, the main plot of the prodigy has been written. What will be written tomorrow will be the end of the complete plot, which is also the epilogue. Those who are not interested in the epilogue can be ignored. In the end, Goldfish's current emotions were mixed. There were disappointment, frustration, relief, excitement. There were all sorts of emotions. In the end, she would also write a speech to share with everyone about the feelings of the creator of the prodigy. Chapter 33:28. The scale of the divine city of fortune was comparable to that of a macro world. Moreover, Lin Sun had once carried out a thorough transformation of the city, including the secret realm of heart, the primordial realm, the witchcraft realm, the Zen realm, and the spiritual realm, making the scale of the city completely different. When Lin Sun and Xia Ji walked into the city, they saw the streets were bustling with people and carriages. The hustle and bustle made Lin Sun's eyes flicker. A few hundred years had passed since he left Divine Fortune City and headed to the Sea of Destiny all those years ago until he returned. The Divine City of Fortune was obviously different from what he had seen in the past. It was peaceful, lively, and prosperous everywhere. The cultivators who walked in the city came from various eras and civilizations in the ruins of fortune. No matter how high or low their cultivation was, they all lived in harmony. Even the street peddlers dared to argue with the immortals for selling a spiritual medicine. When the waiters in the tea-houses faced the nobles, they also advanced and retreated, neither humble nor overbearing. Even the peddlers and servants did their own things and did their own duties. All of these scenes formed a peaceful and bustling scene of a flourishing age. "Master, there have been quite a few troublemakers who have caused trouble in the city over the years. However, I've always acted according to what you said all those years ago. I've dealt with those who are reasonable and those who are unreasonable with my fists. Now, no one in the entire ruins of creation dares to cause trouble in the city anymore," Wu Shuang said with a smile. She was dressed in white, pure and beautiful, like a little fairy, and attracted a lot of attention along the way. But in contrast, when people noticed Xia Solstice beside Lin Sun, they were all in a trance and lost their wit. Seeing this, Lin Sun hurriedly reminded Xia Ji to cover up. Xia Ji responded with an "oh," and her aura changed quietly. Her beautiful face, which was enough to turn all living things upside down in the world, became ordinary. Along the way, Lin Sun deliberately suppressed his divine sense, and only experienced the things in the city with the vision and mind of an ordinary person. He couldn't help but feel gratified. He didn't forget the great aspirations of Tai Xian, Wu Yang, and other sages in the past, to establish a heart for heaven and earth, to establish a life for all living beings, to pass on the unique skills of the sages, and to establish peace for all ages. Just the Fortune Divine City alone was enough to maintain the appearance of peace. In the future, as long as he was here, the world would naturally be the same. Just as he was walking, a wave of enthusiastic clamor suddenly came from afar, soaring straight to the sky. Lin Sun looked up and found that the sound came from a huge Taoist field in the city. "Master, this is a Tao ground established by Senior Xian Feiling, and it's prepared for sparring and discussing the Tao. Of course, if there's any conflict between the cultivators in the city, it can be resolved here as well. In fact, some people with deep grudges will even fight to the death here to settle their grudges," Wu Shuang said softly. Lin Sun nodded. Living in harmony didn't necessarily mean that there wouldn't be any conflict. The so-called tribulations were born from this, and slaughter and battle were bound to be impossible to vanish from the world. This was the law of life. Because one's disposition and path towards the Tao were different, sin, calamity, and hatred were bound to be unavoidable. Come, let's go take a look. Lin Sun was also interested and went straight forward. The Taoist field was so large that it could accommodate tens of thousands of people. At this time, a battle had just come to an end. The spectators nearby were cheering for a young man in a black robe who won the battle. He deserves to be the 9th young master of Lin family. The blood of Lin family flows in his body. Someone sighed with emotion. Lin Hengdu, you'd better be 18 soon. I'm waiting to marry you. A beautiful girl even screamed with excitement and infatuation in her eyes. This caused a lot of uproar. In the Taoist field, the young man in a black robe called Lin Hengdu was extremely calm, but after hearing the love of those girls, his handsome cheeks flushed a lot. He was quite embarrassed and shy. He hurriedly cupped his hands to the surrounding people, and then turned to leave in a hurry. I'm going to die. Little brother Lin Hengdu is so cute. A group of crazy girls screamed in the field. Master, Lin Hengdu is the 9th son of child Lin Fan. He is only 14 years old this year, but he has already reached the true sage realm. He is very famous in the divine fortune city. Wu Shuang said with a smile. I also watched him grow up. He has a very good temper, but he is easily shy when girls stare at him. Shy? Lin Sun was speechless, and then he seemed to understand and said in surprise, Wait, you mean this is the 9th child of Lin Fan? Wu Shuang nodded. Right, there are 3 older sisters and 5 older brothers above young Master Hengdu. The oldest is young Master Lin Hengyun, and he's already 239 years old this year. Presently, he already possesses the cultivation of someone at the same longevity realm as the eternal Tao. Lin Sun was both surprised and delighted. His eyes drifted and he said, Lin Fan is so fertile. This piece of good news was something he had not expected at all. Let's go and meet this boy. Lin Sun couldn't calm down. He had only left for hundreds of years, but he actually had grandchildren, and there were as many as 9. His status suddenly became a grandfather, which made Lin Sun's mood change subtly. Outside the Taoist field, a girl in cyan came out with Lin Hengdu. Many girls they met along the way wanted to get close to Lin Hengdu, but when they were glanced at by the girl in cyan's cold eyes, they were scared to stop and only dared to look at them from a distance. Sister, why did you scare them? You are so fierce. No boy dares to approach you in the future. Lin Hengdu said with a smile. The girl in cyan snorted. I am devoted to cultivation and have no time to care about the affairs between men and women. As for you, you are only 14 years old. Don't be fascinated by those girls. Mother has said that you are not allowed to contact any girl before you are 18 years old. Aren't you a girl? Lin Hengdu said helplessly. I'm your sister. The girl in cyan raised her finger and knocked on Lin Hengdu's forehead. Her fierce look made Lin Hengdu shrink his neck in fear. The two of them chatted as they moved forward. Behind them, Wu Shuang said in a clear voice, Master, this is Miss Henglin, ranked 8th in this generation. She is 19 years old this year. She and Master Hengdu almost grew up together and are closest to each other. Lin Sun nodded. Looking at the back of the brother and sister in the distance, his heart was full of a subtle joy. Master, I suddenly remembered a happy event, Wu Shuang said suddenly. Before Lin Sun asked, Wu Shuang had told him one by one. It turned out that Tang Jiang, Lin Fan's Taoist companion, had been pregnant for 10 months and was about to give birth. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Lin Sun was stunned for a moment and then became excited. Let's go and have a look. In the past years, he was not present when 9 grandchildren were born. Now another grandson was born. As a grandfather, how could he miss it? At this moment, Lin Sun didn't have the mood to wander around. He just wanted to return to Lin family as soon as possible. You two little fellows, come with me. On the way, Lin Sun waved his sleeves. Lin Henglin and Lin Hengdu, who were walking side by side in the distance, suddenly felt light and were brought to Lin Sun. Both of them were shocked and wanted to scream. But when they saw Lin Sun's appearance, they widened their eyes in disbelief. You are my grandfather? Lin Hengdu cried out involuntarily. Do you know me? Lin Sun said with a smile. Of course I know you. I have seen your portrait when I was a child. Lin Hengdu said excitedly. Lin Henglin took a deep breath and said, Brother, be careful not to be fooled by him. Who knows if he is a bad guy who pretends to be our grandfather? Lin Sun smiled. Little girl is alert. Good. Lin Hengdu looked at his sister, and then at Lin Sun, Xia Ji and Wu Shuang. He couldn't help saying, Sister, who dares to pretend to be our grandfather in this world? If he did so, he would have been killed by Wu Shuang. Good analysis, little girl. Lin Sun smiled more warmly. Lin Henglin also calmed down and realized this. She couldn't help but stare at Lin Sun blankly and said, You are really grandfather? Let's have a good talk when we arrive at Lin family. Lin Sun didn't explain anymore. With a thought, he disappeared with the others. The secret realm of heart. In a hall of Lin family. Lin Wenjing, Luo Qingxuan, Lin Fan and Luo Qingxuan gathered together and waited there. They were all nervous and expectant. Outside the hall, Lin Hengyun, the eldest son of Lin Fan, and other younger brothers and sisters gathered together. They were also waiting and discussing in a low voice. Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in the void, and a group of figures appeared, which attracted the attention of Lin Hengyun and others. Henglin Hengdu, you are here. Hey, they are. Lin Hengyun and others were stunned at first, and then they all looked at Lin Sun. Their eyes widened little by little. They were all too familiar with that look, but, brothers and sisters, he said he is our grandfather. Lin Hengdu couldn't help whispering. Grandfather? Lin Hengyun and others were a little flustered. They had heard all kinds of legendary stories about their grandfather since they were young, and they had seen his portrait countless times. But they had never seen him in person. When such a living person suddenly appeared, they were at a loss for what to do. The scene was a little quiet. Lin Sun glanced at these young boys and girls one by one, and the smile on his face grew wider. Father! At this moment, a figure rushed out of the hall. It was Lin Fan. He obviously sensed the movement outside, and when he saw Lin Sun clearly, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Clatter, Zhao Jingxian, Lin Wenjing, Luo Qingxuan and others also rushed out. When they saw Lin Sun, they couldn't hide their surprise. At this moment, Lin Hengyun and the other siblings finally dared to believe that the person in front of them was their grandfather, Lin Sun. A person who had been regarded as a supreme legend by all living beings in the world as early as when they were young. And at this moment, a baby's cry sounded from the depths of the hall. Tang Jiang, who had been pregnant for 10 months, had successfully given birth to a daughter. Double happiness. Chapter 33-29. In the hall, Lin Sun held a newborn baby girl in his arms, with a gentle smile on his face. Father, Tang Jiang said that you should decide on the little girl's name. Lin Fan said with a smile. Lin Wenjing and his wife also looked at him with a smile. Lin Hengyun, Lin Henglin and other brothers and sisters were also looking at Lin Sun with curiosity and excitement. Xia Ji and Wu Shuang stood on the other side of Lin Sun. Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, Let's call her Hengyuan. In the swaddling clothes, although the baby girl had just been born, she already looked beautiful and her eyes were dark and shiny. When Lin Sun read the word Hengyuan, she actually cried in a childish voice, seeming to be extremely happy. This was normal. After all, this little girl was not the descendant of ordinary people. She had the blood of Lin Fan and Tang Jiang in her body, so she could be said to be a natural talent. And with Lin Sun's cultivation, when she was named, an invisible force of fate poured into the little girl's body. Heng Yuan, good name, Lin Fan shouted. No matter how bad the name your father gave you is, do you dare to say it's not good? Zhao Jingxian laughed. Everyone couldn't help laughing. On this day, Lin Sun's return caused a sensation in the Lin family. Then the news spread and was known by Yuan School, Ji Clan, Yuan Shi Taoist sect and other cultivators living in the divine city of fortune. For a time it caused a great sensation, and in the following time, the divine city of fortune and even all the epochs in the whole ruins of fortune also knew the news of Lin Sun's return, which set off a great wave in the whole world. Lin Sun. In today's world, in the entire universe, who would dare to forget the power behind this name? However, no one knew about Lin Sun's deeds in the ruins of wonderful Tao. Otherwise, the commotion it would cause would be no small matter. 3 months later. Lin family in the divine city of fortune. In a large hall, Lin Fan frowned slightly. I don't know who leaked the news, but now, in the ruins of creation, the god race forces of the various eras and civilizations already know that father will be marrying Aunt Xia Ji in a month. Recently, the divine city of fortune had become unprecedentedly lively. No one knew how many big shots had come to Fortune City to look forward to the day of Lin Sun's wedding. It was even to the extent that some of the seniors who had been in secluded meditation for countless years had come. Tang Jiang said in a warm voice from the side, "Husband, what sort of figure is father? Every single move he makes will definitely receive the attention of the world. Not to mention it's impossible to conceal something as important as getting married." Lin Fan smiled bitterly. Father originally said that we should keep a low profile and only invite friends and family to the wedding banquet. But now, I'm afraid that won't be possible. Naturally, this matter cannot be handled too easily. Suddenly, Zhao Jingxian walked in. When you were young, your Aunt Xia Ji was by your father's side. Now that the two of them have finally come to fruition, I'm very happy. Since the news has been leaked, we might as well make this wedding a better one. Lin Fan was surprised. Mother, aren't you jealous at all? Zhao Jingxian snorted coldly. What do you know? Don't talk nonsense. This matter will be handled by you personally. If it's not done well, I won't spare you. After saying that, she turned around and left. Tang Jiang pursed her lips and smiled. Husband, in the next few days, it depends on your ability. Lin Fan stood up and said, I'm going to find help now. On the same day, Lin Fan visited Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and other old guys of Yuan sect, Ji Wangtu, Ji Shi, Ji Shanhai of Ji Clan, and his father's good friends, such as Ah Hu, Old Toad, Ah Lu, Big Blackbird, and so on. After learning the purpose of Lin Fan's visit, everyone happily agreed. As time passed, the divine city of fortune was simply overcrowded. The divine city of fortune was simply packed with people. Terrifying figures could be seen everywhere, and all of them were great figures from the various eras in the ruins of fortune. Moreover, everyone had arrived in advance and carefully prepared wedding gift. However, the embarrassing thing was that not everyone could get the wedding invitation of the Lin family. Even the patriarch of a god clan couldn't get it even if he used all his means. But no one gave up. They had been waiting. Even if they couldn't attend the wedding banquet, at least they had the opportunity to see how many supreme figures would participate in the wedding banquet. It should be known that with Lin Sun's current status, he could be regarded as the first person in all the heavens, a supreme existence that was unparalleled throughout the ages. How could those who could participate in his wedding banquet be ordinary? In the eyes of those big shots, this was not so much Lin Sun's wedding banquet, but a grand event that attracted the attention of the whole world. The wedding day finally came. On this day, the sky above the divine city of fortune was filled with auspicious clouds, and magnificent divine light fell like a waterfall. Bursts of Tao sounds like the sound of nature, like the clear cry of a phoenix, like the ringing of a morning bell, drifted between heaven and earth, revealing a joyful atmosphere of freedom. The whole divine city of fortune was bathed in such a festive and peaceful atmosphere. The practitioners gathered in the city were all alarmed. All kinds of unparalleled visions gathered together, outlining a magnificent scene, which made them involuntarily have the impulse to worship. At this time, the secret realm of heart had also taken on a new look. A hall located in the central area was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, and the floor was covered with red carpets. In front of the hall there was a huge arch. The arch was completely derived from the auspicious clouds of the Great Way, overflowing with Tao rhyme. Walking in it, one could clearly feel an unparalleled breath of the Great Way. If one cultivated in it, it was no different from obtaining a great opportunity. Now, the function of this arch was actually very simple. It was used to welcome guests. Many figures had been waiting there for a long time. There were clansmen of the Lin family headed by Lin Wenjing and his wife, such as Lin Zhong, Lin Huiyuan, Lin Xiefeng, and so on. Next to them were Xian Jiuyin, Jintian Xianyue, Su Bai Gushi, Ah Hu, Big Blackbird, Ah Lu, Xiaotian, Qiuqiu, Old Toad, Little Five, Sword Spirit, and other old friends of Lin Sun. Yu Beidu and Chu Feng of the commune of spiritual tattooists of Xiao Empire, the instructors of Green Deer School, Gu Yanping and Gu Liang of Golden Hall, Shi Yu and Shi Linlang of Keystone Business, and so on were also among them. On the other side were Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and Yuan Wutian of Yuan School. The figures of Battle Emperor Wuyang, Xingjia Holy Buddha, Dark Blood Emperor, Ming Child, and other powerful figures of the ancient Desolation territory were also present. These relatives and friends had been living in the divine city of fortune for many years. During this period, they had been busy with Lin Sun's wedding. Today, they were going to witness a wedding that would attract the attention of the entire world. As time went by, the whole venue had been decorated from the inside to the outside. It was magnificent and glorious. Lin Fan and Tang Jiang stood outside the hall with their children, ready to welcome the guests. Lin Fan's 9 children were: the eldest son, Lin Hengyun, the second son, Lin Hengxiao, the third daughter, Lin Hengjue, the fourth daughter, Lin Hengshan, the fifth son, Lin Hengqiu, the sixth son, Lin Hengxue, the seventh son, Lin Hengfeng, the eighth daughter, Lin Henglin, and the ninth son, Lin Hengdu. Of course, the youngest Lin Hengyuan was still in his infancy. It could be said that the relatives and friends of the Lin family, who had been traveling all year round, had already come back a few days in advance for today's wedding. No one dared to neglect it. Auspicious clouds covered the sky, and auspicious rays of light descended from the sky. The dazzling light of the Tao competed with the brilliance of the sun and moon, and waves of the sound of the Tao and nature drifted through the heavens and the earth, bathing the secret world of Kor in a divine atmosphere. As the time approached, the lively atmosphere in the venue gradually disappeared, and was replaced by a solemn atmosphere. The auspicious time has come. Suddenly, Xian Feiling spoke in a deep voice, which could be heard all over the world. Clang! 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 Bell chimes rang out one after another, shaking the heavens and earth for a total of 9 times. All of a sudden, the expressions of everyone inside and outside the venue became solemn. "Welcome the guests," Xian Feiling announced. 2 words, but they passed through the secret world and resounded in the sky above the entire divine city of fortune. At this moment, the entire divine city of fortune fell silent. Countless cultivators in the city held their breaths, knowing that the wedding that attracted the attention of the world was about to begin. In the secret world of fortune, as Xian Feiling announced the welcoming of the guests, the heavens and earth rippled. A majestic figure appeared. He had a lean appearance, like a ruler sitting high above the heavens. It was the master of the heart Subhuti. Behind him were the Do Zhan Di, Zhong Qiu, Rosu Ling Xuanzi, and the other 49 successors of the heart world. When they appeared, a commotion broke out in the venue. Countless influential figures were shocked. The heart world. Everyone knew that this was where Lin Sun's sect was located. And now, even a supreme existence like the master of the heart world had come in person. How could they not be shocked? Subhuti looked around and said with a smile, "How lively." Behind him, the successors of the heart world also laughed. On the way here, they had already witnessed the commotion caused by their little junior brother's wedding. Soon, the void rippled again. Yuan Sek's ancestral master Yuan Chu, Ling Sek's ancestral master Su Yin, Do So, and the old priest appeared together with Xing Jiangu, Fu Nanli, Ren Futian, and the other old monsters. Another commotion broke out in the venue. Xian Feiling, Duguyong, and the others were shocked. Because even they did not expect Yuan Chu and Su Yin to arrive with a group of seniors. This was too much of a surprise for them. They quickly went forward to welcome them. The venue was already in an uproar. Many people were dumbfounded. Even many members of the Lin clan had been kept in the dark. They had no idea that at this moment, those almighty figures who only existed in legends would arrive one after another. Only Lin Fan chuckled. He was the one who handled these matters. Naturally, he knew that the seniors of the Heart World, Yuan Sect, and Ling Sect were not the only ones who came. Not long after, a ripple appeared in the void. More people arrived. This time there were only 2 people. But when they arrived, the entire venue fell silent. Everyone's attention was drawn to them. The newcomers were Chen Shi and Chen Linkong. Subhuti, Yuan Chu, Su Yin, and the others went forward to welcome them. Those who did not know Chen Shi and Chen Linkong's identity could not help but be shocked when they saw this scene. They realized that the newcomers were extraordinary. Today was Lin Sun's wedding. Therefore, when they arrived, Chen Shi, Chen Linkong, Subhuti, Yuan Chu, Su Yin, and the other big shots all concealed their auras at the same time. They did not show any terrifying power. But even so, when they appeared, they still made people tremble from the depths of their souls. As for Lin Hengyun and the other siblings, they stood there in shock, their hearts pounding. Only now did they realize how powerful their grandfather was. Everything they had seen in the past few days was far less shocking than the scene before them. Especially when they learned about the background of those big shots from their father, Lin Fan, they all felt as if they were dreaming. And everyone else present felt the same way. The reason was that Lin Sun had not mentioned anything about the Sea of Fate and the ruins of Tao since he returned to Fortune City. It was not until this moment that they suddenly realized that Lin Sun was much more powerful than when he left that year. After Chen Shi, Subhuti, and the others arrived, they also brought their own gift. The divine treasures that they had never heard of before shocked the wedding ceremony again and again. The value of the gifts completely exceeded the imagination of many people present. Any one of them was enough to make any eternal god dare not have extravagant hopes of owning it. Now, let the wedding ceremony begin. When all the guests were seated, Xian Feiling spoke in a clear voice. Immediately, the bell and drum rang together, the sound of nature drifted in the air, and the world was filled with auspicious signs. Under everyone's gaze, a pair of figures walked out of the central hall, attracting everyone's attention. Today, Lin Sun was dressed in a red groom's outfit. Beside him stood the graceful figure of Xia Ji, wearing a phoenix crown and a red cape. A newlywed couple stood on the steps of the main hall. The sky was overflowing with divine light, and the sound of Tao drifted in the air. In the distance, the guests were seated, and the bell and drum rang together. This scene was destined to become an unerasable imprint in the memories of all the people present. It was worth a lifetime of reminiscence. The wedding ceremony was presided over by Subhuti, the master of the square inch, and carried out under the witness of all the relatives and friends. Then, the wedding ceremony began. The lively atmosphere lasted for a whole day. Lin Sun didn't know how many glasses of wine he drank and how many friends he talked with. He only felt that there was nothing unhappy about this day. On this day, he was not like a supreme ruler who had embarked on the path of life. Instead, he was like the most common groom in the world, enjoying the unique joy of this day to his heart's content. Tao was Tao. Love was love. That night, in the bridal room, the atmosphere was quiet with red candles. Xia Ji, who was dressed in a fiery red phoenix coronet, was sitting in front of the bed. Her beautiful snow-white face was extremely beautiful under the light, and even her eyes, which were as clear as stars, were suffused with intoxicating splendor. In the quiet room, only she and Lin Sun were left. The sound of the outside world seemed to disappear all at once. Lin Sun stepped forward and sat beside Xia Ji. The latter's eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she finally realized what was going to happen next. She couldn't help but whisper, "Lin Sun," before she could finish her sentence. Her rosy lips were sealed. What happened next was so fascinating and mysterious that there was no need to tell others. The same night, the lights were bright everywhere, and the sound of talking and drinking could be heard constantly. The guests who came to participate in the wedding banquet were still chatting happily with each other. In a palace built on the hillside, the atmosphere was quiet and tranquil. Holding Lin Hengyuan, who had fallen asleep, in her arms, Zhao Jingxian said softly, "Xianyue, I have told you that if you want, I will tell my husband. So many years have passed, and I believe he should know your feelings." Beside her, Jintian Xianyue, who was dressed in white and had picturesque features, trembled slightly in her heart, and then she shook her head. "Sister, there is no need. I am satisfied as long as I can stay by young master's side." Zhao Jingxian sighed in her heart. Perhaps the most unfathomable thing in this world is love. 4 cultivators like us, who can completely cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires in our hearts. She was full of pity for Jintian Xianyue. "Sister, cultivation is also cultivation of the heart. I was a Taoist attendant by young master's side, and I have already thought it through. I will never marry in this life," Jintian Xianyue said with a smile, and there was no trace of sadness on her beautiful face. Zhao Jingxian nodded, and then she said with a smile, "Like father, like son. Fan is not enlightened. In these years, countless women have fallen in love with him, but he only loves Tang Jiang." Jintian Xianyue couldn't help but smile. The second day after the wedding ceremony, Chun Shi, Chun Linkong, Subhuti, and the other almighties left one after another. The other guests also bid their farewells and left. At that moment, what happened at the wedding ceremony spread to the outside world, and for a time, it caused a great commotion. "Senior Lin Sun's power is probably at the top of the world right now, right?" That must be the case, or else how could there be so many supreme figures coming to the wedding ceremony to personally congratulate him? The Lin family is so lucky. The divine city of fortune, the ruins of fortune, and the other Ians were all discussing the wedding ceremony. Later on, the news even spread to the 9 great celestial regions of eternal true world, the great 1,000 worlds, the ancient path of galaxy, and other places, and it caused a great commotion. Time passed, and the years went by. Lin Sun stayed in the Lin family, enjoying the happiness of a family. Beyond the ruins of fortune was the spirit martial era, which included the eternal true world, the great 1,000 worlds, and countless other worlds. The presence of a disaster was quietly spreading out in space. The disaster of an aeon is about to arrive. In all the worlds in the world, there were countless people with remarkable abilities who immediately noticed the clues, and they could not help but feel panic and uneasiness. What should we do? Many cultivators were at a loss. Once such a disaster came, there was no place to hide, because all the living beings in the world were in the spirit martial era. And when the disaster of an aeon arrived, no one could escape, be it cultivators or ordinary people. This is fate, the cycle of the way of heaven. No one can escape from the great calamity. Some people were disheartened. Can't you see that a supreme existence like Lin Sun is also hibernating in the ruins of fortune, and there are billions of nobodies like us in this world? We are destined to be destroyed along with the end of this era, someone sighed. But on this day, a thought rang out in all the worlds of the spirit martial era. Today, I, Lin Sun, will resolve the disaster and determine the way. The voice was indistinct, but it went straight to the ninth heaven and spread to all the worlds in the world in an instant. At this moment, all the living beings in the world felt something in their hearts. They stopped what they were doing and looked at the sky. Their expressions were solemn and pious, as if they were being cleansed by an invisible force. On the other hand, those extraordinary figures suddenly noticed that this era calamity that was accumulating had suddenly vanished without a trace, and they couldn't sense it any longer. But what was different from the past was that there was a mysterious power of rules in the universal Tao of the Lin Wu era that made even the gods tremble. It was Lin Sun's own aura of the Great Way. It was to establish a heart for the world, establish a life for the people, and establish peace for all ages. Senior Lin Sun, he actually resolved the disaster of an aeon and reconstructed the order of the universe, so that all the living beings in the world could escape from the coming catastrophe. My God! Senior Lin Sun is too powerful, isn't he? Countless uproars and voices of shock rang out in the eternal true world, the boundless worlds and countless planes of the universe. No one had expected that the heir of minuscule mountain would be able to thwart the disaster of an aeon, establish his Tao in the world, and save all living beings from the disaster. No one had expected that even the universal Tao of the Lin Wu era had been surpassed by Lin Sun, and it could only bow before him. But soon, the memories of Lin Sun in the minds of the people, with remarkable abilities in the world, seemed to have been silently wiped away and vanished. This aroused an unknown number of doubtful voices, but no matter how they racked their brains, they could not remember anything. As for the billions of living beings in the world, they had no idea what had happened from the beginning until the end. The Tao is formless and nameless, so it exists everywhere. If there are traces of me, Lin Sun, around, then it will be inferior. In the secret world of minuscule mountain, Lin Sun, who was lying on a rocking chair, smiled and drank a cup of wine. Not far away, a baby was learning how to walk, and he would fall from time to time. Xia Ji watched from behind, and her eyes were filled with gentleness. This was her and Lin Sun's child. From the moment he was born, he became another ray of light in her world besides Lin Sun. The book was finished. At night, he would write another speech after finishing the book. He would talk about the feelings in his heart, and he would also talk about the things that everyone was most concerned about and the new book. Chapter 33:30. I'm done. When she typed these 3 words, Goldfish felt relaxed. At the same time, she felt a great sense of loss and disappointment. She stared at the computer for a long time. Her thoughts were also wandering. February 24, 2016, Heavenly Sun opened. December 25, 2019, Heavenly Sun finished. Heavenly Sun had been serialized for 3 years and 10 months. Behind the simple numbers, there were days and nights of writing updates. She had been depressed, disappointed, happy, and excited. In the end, when it was finally done, she was reluctant. She believed that the children had developed the habit of waiting for updates at 6 o'clock every night for the past 3 years. And she was also used to writing updates every day. When a habit came to an end, the sudden pause inevitably caused one to be at a loss and bewildered. That was how Goldfish felt at the moment. After thinking for a long time, she decided to take this opportunity to talk about her feelings when she was writing Heavenly Sun. Heavenly Sun had 3 main lines from the beginning. 1. The secret of one's life, the main plot. 2. The heaven accessing place, the main plot. 3. The 4 ruins of Tao, the main plot of the world. The 3 lines intersected with each other and formed the framework of Heavenly Sun. Lin Sun's path of cultivation was the flesh, blood, and spirit attached to the skeleton. Heavenly Sun had written 10 million words. Because the contract with the website was 10 million words, Goldfish had consciously set and controlled the plot when she was writing this book. Currently, Heavenly Sun had finished, and the holes in the 3 main plots had been filled. There were causes and effects, so Goldfish was quite satisfied. But there were also many flaws. For example, there were many small holes and foreshadowing in the serialization, but they couldn't be filled in because of the problems in the plot. For example, there were some bugs and contradictions in the settings in the previous plots, and so on. These were the parts that I was not satisfied with. But I had to admit that these mistakes were unavoidable. After all, the book was updated every day, and it required a large amount of updates. No matter how rigorous it was destined to be impossible to be free of mistakes. He believed that the children's shoes had read a lot of Xuanhuan and Xianxia novels, and they must be clear that no serialized novel was truly flawless. As for Heavenly Sun, Goldfish had tried her best to fill in the holes in the core plot. For me, it wasn't perfect, but it was a satisfactory ending. Let's talk about Heavenly Sun's achievements. Compared to the Talisman Emperor, the results of the geniuses were undoubtedly more outstanding. Since the serialization, he had far surpassed the Rune Emperor in terms of various statistics and popularity. This made the Goldfish feel at ease. Yes, it was steady. In the online literature industry, writing a popular book did not mean that the second book would be popular. There were even many godly authors who performed mediocre in their second and third book. Goldfish also had such worries when she was creating the proud Son of Heaven. Fortunately, Shen Jiao's achievement was better than Rune Emperor's, and he received the recognition of more readers. Although it wasn't a huge hit, such an achievement was very reliable for me. Goldfish had never thought of herself as a talented author, but she believed that she was diligent and serious when it came to writing books. He believed that the children who followed him along the way would know that Goldfish rarely took leave or missed updates. Even if she missed updates, she would definitely make up for it. This was perhaps the only thing that Goldfish could be proud of. Fortunately, Goldfish had sold the game copyright, overseas translation copyright, and audio copyright for the creation of Rune Emperor. Manga copyright. At present, Rune Emperor's performance abroad was extremely good, which was totally beyond my expectation. Heavenly Son of Heaven had also sold the manga, traditional Chinese, and audio copyright. What was even more fortunate was that Goldfish could take care of her family with her creation. But in the end, all of this was inseparable from everyone's support. From Rune Emperor to the proud Son of Heaven, many readers had gone from junior high school students to university students or postgraduate students. Many readers had already become parents. It had been a tough journey. Every time Goldfish thought of it, she would feel emotional and grateful. Let's talk about the new book. The new book was a story about a swordsman. It had been revealed many times on Goldfish's public account. Recently, many children had asked her what she would write about in the next book. Goldfish had said that she would write about a sword, traveling against the flow of heaven and earth, carrying a sword on her back, swallowing all the great spirit and exhaling a lifetime of fast wind. Of these two sentences, one was, traveling against the flow of heaven and earth, I am also a traveler. The other was, a little great spirit and 1,000 miles of fast wind. There was another meaning. Living in the world, one had to breathe in and out, fight for and vent one's anger. There were many books about swordsmen on the internet, and many of them were very interesting. But Goldfish wanted to write about the story of a swordsman in her heart, a pure swordsman and a sword Tao that could suppress the heavens. It could be a great demon of sword Tao, unbridled and unrestrained. It could be a sage of sword Tao, everlasting and full of vigor. It could be a sword immortal, free and unfettered, holding the bright moon and lying drunk in the clouds of the ninth heaven. It could be a sword demon, able to open the gate of heaven in anger and laugh at the sword Tao of the world. But in the end, at the very beginning, they were all youths. Goldfish didn't mind revealing that the main character was very likely to be the swordsman of the Heavenly Sons, the supreme legend who had a heart as pure as jade and sharpened as a sword. It was the swordsman who had suppressed Tai Chu for countless years with the sword lock and made Tai Chu gasp in admiration and respect. It was the swordsman who had gotten drunk with Chun-Shi. It was the swordsman whom Lin Sun respected the most. It was also the swordsman whom the 3-inch wooden sword and spiritual affinity were looking for. It was estimated that she would start writing the new book after the new year. If the creation of Rune Emperor and the Heavenly Sons was a process of sharpening the sword, then after accumulating a lot of creation experience, the next book would be the time to draw the sword. So far, Goldfish had collected a lot of materials and organized a lot of inspiration. She believed that this story related to Sword Tao would definitely surprise everyone. Finally, there was a side story. The side story would be serialized on Goldfish's public account. So far, there were 2 parts that were confirmed to be written. They were The Mystery of the Origin of the Broken Blade in the Ancient Spirit World and the second side story of Wu Xuecha. There were other side stories, but she hadn't thought about them yet. She would write them according to the situation. Note that the side story would only be updated on the public account. If you didn't follow Goldfish's public account, you could open it and add me as your follower. When the side story was updated, you would see it immediately. Finally, I'm really grateful to all of you for your company and support all these years. I love you. The mountains are high and the rivers are far. See you in the new book. Chapter 33-31. Everyone can search for the title of the book on the Zongheng Novel app and read it immediately. Heaven's Chosen Battle Chronicles. Chapter 32-42, New Book, First Immortal of the Way of the Sword. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update.